Good evening. This February the 20th Board of Aldermen meeting is hereby called to order. I'd like to ask Alderman Earhart if he'd lead us in invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead. Please stand.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Our most gracious God and Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this beautiful day that you bless us with. Thank you, Lord, for this city, the way that you've blessed us, the way that your hand's upon us in terms of safety and prosperity. Lord, I just thank you for the participation of the citizens tonight, both on the development side and the interest they have, and both on the citizen side, and just ask that you would give us wisdom to grow, wisdom to make the right decisions. And I pray, Lord, that you continue to bless our city employees, the way they serve this city. Thank you for what they do, the way you take care of us. We give you great thanks for all your many blessings. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Madam Clerk, would you conduct roll call?
Aldridge. Here. Collins.
Here.
Dickerson.
Here.
Earhart.
Here.
Hamilton. Here. Henderson. Here. Wallace.
Here.
All present, so obviously a quorum is established. Board, you've had before you through the weekend the minutes of our February the 6th regular called meeting. Are there any questions on those minutes? Any changes, additions, questions, or any motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alderwoman Hamilton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Abstain.
Clerk will show Mr. Earhart abstaining from that. I believe he was on travel last meeting. Mayor's updates will be very, very brief today. I do want to share a note received from one of our business owners that I know we have some fire department staff, leadership team of fire department with us as well. And this lady wrote, Mayor, the fire department came out today and I wanted to send you a message to let you know that Gabriel, Jaden, and Chris were the utmost professional. There was a mix-up with the testing of our fire alarm system and the station was deployed. Gabriel suggested to come back out next week and schedule some time for their team to come by and tour the facility just in case they needed to arrive. They were a great representation of the city of Olive Branch and wanted to make sure that I was aware of that, and Board, I share that with you and share that with fire staff and fire brass as well. So thank you for a job well done representing the city. Following the agenda, our consent agenda is before you, Board. Any questions on any of those items? Alderman Collins, Alderman at Large, motion to approve, second by Alderman Wallace. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I remind the board and the audience that our meeting is being streamed live on YouTube for viewing live as well as playback at a different date. And board, just a general reminder for us to use our microphones whenever we're discussing so that the audience in the courtroom as well as the audience at home can hear what's being discussed. Next page. Thank you. Planning Commission old business item number 1. This is a public hearing date for consideration of application for a zoning map amendment submitted by Ben Smith IPD Solutions on behalf of property owner Wusu Enterprise LLC. The request is to extricate a 1.84 plus or minus acre parcel from the plantation planned unit development and rezone it from planned unit development to C1 neighborhood commercial. The subject property is located within the northeast quadrant of the intersection of Plantation Crossing and Germantown Road, adjacent to 9034 Germantown Road. This public hearing date was set for January the 16th in the meeting on the 19th for a public hearing and was tabled. I believe that was due to weather concern, if I remember right. Any staff report on this particular item?
Yes, sir. A few brief comments. As you mentioned in the introduction, our subject property is just under 2 acres in size. It's currently an unplatted parcel. It's flag-shaped, as you can see on your overhead. We're about 700 feet to the south of State Line Road, and we're on the east side of Germantown Road. And as you mentioned, the application tonight is to extract this property from the plantation plan unit development and change its zoning district from PUD to the C1 neighborhood commercial district. And this really could be considered a downzoning because as opposed to the plantation PUD, the C1 district has restrictions, more restrictions on uses and the range of uses that would be permitted, and also would restrict the building size that would be able to be constructed there. And you can see close up here of our property right at the intersection of Plantation Crossing, and it kind of wraps around this building 9034 Germantown Road. That, you may recall, was a bank. A number of years ago, back in 2019, it was converted to a convenience store, and that was done under the existing planned unit development. This shows you a view of the property from Oakwood Drive looking up in a northeasterly direction, and you can see the converted bank, C-store in the foreground, and our property would be back in the background here. And this is taking a look at the property from Plantation Crossing looking due north, and this would be the access to the property. You can see that gas canopy back in the background of that photo. If we go back through the history of what's transpired in this PUD, and this is a zoning map, and you can see we couldn't cover all 450 acres of the plantation PUD, but this is a good section of it. That whole PD has about 300 single-family lots in it, and all those lots are developed with homes. We have the plantation apartments that are located right here to the east of the subject property, and those were built out in the mid-1990s. And then we have a 62-unit Glennet Plantation condominiums that were originally started back in the 2003-2004 time frame, and they were finished up between 2019 and 2021. Located on the south side of Plantation Crossing, we have a 6,000 square foot building that was the Baptist Minor Medical Center, and that was built back in 1996, and that closed down last fall. It's currently a vacant building. I had mentioned earlier we have the 3,500 square foot former bank building that was converted to a convenience store back in 2019. And then up at the corner of State Line Road, we have an approved site plan for another convenience store with fuel pumps. And again, those convenience stores were all done under the existing plantation planned unit development. That's a permitted use within the bounds of that project text. This next slide shows you on the left-hand side a copy of the 1990 master plan when this was originally approved. And you can see this is the approximate location of our subject property. What was originally planned in this area was a large shopping center, as you can see, and the master plan was not updated, at least the full master plan was not updated when the Glennet Plantation was approved. So you can see the Plantation Crossing Road right here. You don't see it on the original master plan. And then this area that's currently part of the proposed shopping center from 90 became the Glennet Plantation condos. And then you can see back in the back this area right here, and you can see the outline of the lake. That's the plantation apartments, and you can see the lake outline. So that was pretty much built as was originally planned back in 1990. If we look at our rezoning criteria, number one deals with, was the original zoning classification of the property a mistake, and there's no type of claim suggesting that the original zoning was a mistake. The 450 acres was rezoned by the DeSoto Board of Supervisors back in 1990, and they concurrently adopted the master plan and project text for the PUD, and that property was shortly thereafter annexed into the city, and it's pretty much developed under the city's jurisdiction since. Our second criteria deals with the character of the neighborhood and has it changed to such an extent to justify the rezoning. And in this case, this is a little bit of a different way to look at it than maybe we normally would, but it's assumed that when the original PD was approved that the residential component probably wasn't anticipated that its residential component would outpace its commercial development, but that's what we see has happened over the years. So as I mentioned earlier, we have about 300 lots in that PD that has that are all developed with single-family homes. We have the apartments and the condos that are already built there. And so, considering the unanticipated change in the neighborhood development where we've had all of the residential units around it, downzoning the property to restrict the range of uses appears, and it will also limit the size of the building. As I mentioned earlier, there are uses that are in the Plantation PD that are currently allowed on that property, which would include not just C-stores, but also things like hotels or car lots. Again, that's permitted. By going to C1, it would limit the building size down to 10,000 and also restrict that range of uses down. So that would better ensure compatibility of future commercial development of that 1.84 acres with the surrounding neighborhood that's there. And number 3, from a public need perspective, we do have a large number of residential rooftops in the vicinity. The property does have access to both Germantown Road and Plantation Crossing, so it is fairly well situated for what's being planned there, a small multi-bay retail building, and you could attract users to that building that would help meet needs of area residents. And this shows you a picture of our future land use map from the Comp Plan 2040, and it does designate the property with a future land use map designation of neighborhood commercial in recognition of its location and the proximity to those surrounding residential neighborhoods. Our Planning Commission did review this application at the December 12th, 2023 meeting, and by unanimous 5-0 margin did recommend approval. I would mention that the applicant, Ben Smith, unexpectedly was unable to attend tonight, and he did call me and say if there were any major questions on this, that he would not necessarily be opposed to the Board of Aldermen tabling it. I think there's probably not too many concerns over this one, so I recommended that we just go forward. But just to keep that in mind, if you did have major questions or concerns and would like the applicant, he would have no objection to you all tabling it till the March meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Gambone. Board, do you have any questions regarding the staff report?
I'll just make the comment that this new plan is much more desirable for a small strip mall than a possible hotel or car lot there on Germantown Road. So this is much more acceptable to the residents of our area.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson. Anyone else, any comments or questions? Hearing none, this being a public meeting, public hearing input, is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application? You're a proponent. You're here to speak on behalf of this application. If so, please come forward. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? You oppose this application. If that's the case, come forward. Board, any questions or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Mr. Dickerson, motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Hamilton. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving to this, 2 items that, thank you very much for being here. The board and I thank you. I wish that every time we had a Board of Aldermen meeting, we had these numbers here, so thank you for your interest in what's going on. I do want to just share a couple things. I dispense with the mayor's comments, usually are pretty lengthy, but I wanted to talk about a couple things regarding these next 2 applications that are coming forward. Public input will be received for and against these developments or proposed developments. 3 minutes is the time normally allotted. If you're in the middle of something, obviously you'll be able to go longer than that, but we want to hear everything you have to say, but at the same time, we've got a time clock as well. And once we start hearing the same thing over and over, just be cognizant of that. If you hear that someone's mentioned the same thing, then the board's hearing that, so you don't have to necessarily repeat that. I do ask you to complete one of these blue comment cards if you speak, if you come to the lectern or the podium, and if you will, complete one of these cards and give it to the clerk to my right so we can capture who spoke and make that amendment into permanent minutes, which we need to do. Decorum must be maintained. Please refrain from clapping, shouting. We're not going to have that in unprofessional conduct. That doesn't exist. We have some very well-ran meetings, and thank you for your attendance. The board is prepared to hear all the speakers that wish to make comments for or against. Just a general overview, the Board of Aldermen is committed to make informed decisions tonight based on your comments and information provided by the staff. I share that these board members have a heart for the city. Most of them have spent their entire lives here, some born here and spent their entire life, so they're here to make the decision to the best they can based on the variables that take place. Before this application came before you tonight and before this board, there had already been 4 to 6 staff members from planning, engineering, fire, all different staff members that have worked on these proposals that spent many hours doing so. We also had a 7-person planning commission that are citizens that give up their time in order to hear these as well. That's one step of the process before it gets to the Board of Aldermen. So the citizens that help Planning Commission, thank you for serving. Staff members, thank you for that as well. Just to remind you how this works, because not everyone attends all these meetings, and again, I wish you would. Your mayor doesn't get to vote unless there's a tie. I've been waiting for a tie for 2.5 years, and it hadn't happened yet, but I hear one day it may happen. We have 2 branches of government. Of course, we have 3, but we mainly lean on the legislative and the executive branch of government. I'm the executive branch. I run the day-to-day operation of the city, make sure the ordinances are enforced, laws are enforced, and the Board of Aldermen is the legislative branch for the city of Olive Branch. I have superintendent control of the day-to-day operation, preside over the meetings for the Board of Aldermen, and again, only vote if there's a tie. Common questions that are asked, phone calls and social media, and one question is, can the Board of Aldermen just say no to any particular proposed development because the city has too many of that particular item? Even if it's already zoned for it, can they say no? Now, we know, you hear like I hear, too many car washes, too many of these type restaurants, too many of this. So I want to at least enlighten you a little bit on this subject. The answer is no. The Board of Aldermen cannot control competition or reject an application because there are multiple existing locations of the same type businesses. Often it is said that the city has enough of that particular type of use. Mississippi Supreme Court has long held that the purpose of zoning is not to limit or restrict competition, or zoning ordinance cannot be used to control competition. The city shouldn't approve or deny an application or the Planning Commission just because the city has enough of that type use, because that's in the eye of the beholder. That creates a governmental taking of somebody that may have bought property years ago, and now you've taken away that opportunity. And I'll flip it from the investor side or the developer side and say, if I bought a lot 20 years ago and I want to build on that particular lot, and my bride and I can't save money for 20 years, we finally retire, we're going to build on that lot. So I go get my permit from the city hall and they say, Mr. Adams, you can't build on that lot anymore. And I'm going to say, why? I could when I bought it, so why can't I now? So I want you to see the reverse roles of how that happens sometimes, whether it's residential, commercial, or industrial. Next common question is, can the Board of Aldermen reject an application because the public doesn't want it? I'm glad you're here, but that answer is no. There are numerous Supreme Court cases that point this out. In fact, one of them involves the city of Olive Branch. If you research it, and you'll find that it went to state Supreme Court, and your city and my city paid fees because we didn't want something, but we didn't have legal authority to say no. I'm not saying they have to say yes. I'm going to talk about the yeses in a minute, but those are a couple no's. So if you got 2 no's, what does the law let the Board of Aldermen do? First, we have a 2040 comprehensive plan that you can get online, and that you can get in the senior center, and that you can get in City Hall, made available to you 8 to 5, but of course online 24/7. We've had a series of public meetings since I've been here in the last 2 years, and this has been updated with citizen input. We've had public call meetings, and whether 4 show up or 14 or 40, then we take that input, and I encourage you to be a part of that. Every couple of years, we'll refine this long-range plan, which is a comprehensive year 2040 plan. Also in this plan is a future land use map, the FLUM as it's called. That's what the planning professionals, engineers, fire department, all the staff members and citizen input have decided this is where we think we need to be heading for the year 2040, for land that's not developed. Will it stay like that forever? No. There's things that make it change, and there's reasons for it to change. But if you want to know, is the lot beside me or down the street or around the corner, what's supposed to take place there 10 years from now? Get this manual and look at it. So it'll explain that to you. Also, the burden of proof in a rezoning, which is what we're talking about tonight. Excuse me. The burden of proof in a rezoning is always upon the applicant. They have the burden to prove what needs to be proved. They have to submit clear and convincing evidence demonstrating both a change in the neighborhood and a public need. There is a less frequently used criteria, which means a mistake was made when it was first zoned, an administrative mistake, a clerical mistake. That very seldom happens, but that's one way, other than has the need changed for the community. While the applicant bears the burden of proof, the Planning Commission and the Board of Aldermen are under legal obligation to base decisions and recommendations based on what the law refers to as substantial evidence. The opposite of a decision based on substantial evidence is a decision that the law calls arbitrary and capricious, which really means I just do what I want to do. I want to do it, and I'm going to do that. I have no factual basis to do it, okay? Neither the applicant nor the Planning Commission or the Board of Aldermen may rely on merely conclusive statements regarding the change and the need standard. In other words, they can't just say it, they got to prove it. Developers got to prove the change is made. Board, public, any point you're making, it has to not just be my opinion, it needs to be proved. So I want you to be thinking of that when you come forward tonight. Examples of evidence that have been held to satisfy the change criteria include evidence of development in the area, utility installations, road widening, increases in population, density, or changes in the character of the neighborhood, aerial photos showing changes over time, traffic counts. Those are the things that will be looked at by the board, and those are things that are looked at whatever the decision is tonight. Should that decision be appealed, those are the things that will be looked at in the record to see if that took place. So I ask you to be thinking about those things tonight as you come forward and give public input as we start beginning talking about these two particular items. And again, the board and I are most appreciative that you're here. Item number 2 is public hearing date for consideration of an application for a zoning map amendment submitted by Tim Dascatino, W.H. Porter Consultants, on behalf of property owner Charles Allen. The request is to rezone the property from AR, Agricultural Residential District, to R3, Planned Residential District, and to adopt the project text and development plan for Kirk Farms, a 691-lot, low-density, single-family residential development on 234.01 plus or minus acres located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Highway 302 and Eastern Drive. This was set for public notice for a hearing on January the 16th, and because of the weather, the board and I agreed those hearings did not take place. It was snowy. We were the only ones here. We did paying bills and invoices and salaries. We took care of that and then went home. We kept the public hearing dates to where the public could attend and be a part of these meetings as you should. So it was tabled and then brought forward to today's date. With that, I'll ask for the staff report on this particular item.
Mayor, Board of Aldermen, before you is a request to consider a rezoning for a piece of property lying east of Pork Lane, north of Old Goodman Road. This is over 234 acres at this particular location just east of Eastern Drive. The property is currently vacant, and the applicant is requesting that this piece of property will be rezoned from AR, Agricultural Residential District, to R3, Planned Residential District, essentially for single-family residential development, as I will expand on in the course of this presentation. To the east of this side is Fox Creek, single-family residential development. You also have this vacant piece of property. To the north is predominantly vacant in the northeast. Northwest, you have warehouses. This is Forest Park Drive, and you have these industrial warehouses. To the west is essentially industrial, west of Pork Lane, but in the southwest area of this particular side, that is where you have this Pleasant Grove subdivision, which is rural estate in character. It has lots that are at least 1 acre in size. Further to the south, this is Braeburn subdivision. This is Legacy Park, and then you have all of these vacant land. So this kind of gives you where we are in the city. As I did mention, the property is zoned agricultural residential, AR. That means agricultural residential. To the north, an agricultural residential district generally permits single-family residential development that are minimum 1 acre in size. It also permits other uses like churches, schools, daycare facilities. To the north, it's essentially zoned PUD, planned unit developments, which are really different. The northwest, those planned unit developments are industrial, and then to the northeast, the PUD in that area as planned is single-family residential. To the southwest, that is where you have the Pleasant Grove Estate subdivision, that is also zoned agricultural residential. To the east, where you have Fox Creek and Laurel Brook, those are all PUDs, planned unit residential, with lots that are smaller than 1 acre in size. The lots in Fox Creek, most of them are between about 7,000, in the ballpark of 7,000 to 12,000 square feet in area. So in terms of character of this area from a single-family residential perspective, the lot sizes increase from Fox Creek westward to Pleasant Grove Estate. As I did mention, the purpose for these requests, this rezoning request, is to develop this site for single-family residential, detached single-family residential development on individual lots. The total number of proposed lots will be 691 houses on 234 acres. That is a density of 2.95 dwelling units per acre. This is low density. Although the number of houses appear to be many, 691, the density is actually low density. Why? In the city of Olive Branch, there are 4 zoning districts that are classified as low-density residential development. You have the A district, the agricultural district, which permits a density of at most 1 dwelling unit per acre. There is the AR, agricultural residential, with a maximum density of 1 dwelling unit per acre. There is the R1, low-density residential. That is the next tier, which permits lots to be maximum 3.5 dwelling units per acre. And then you have the R2 that permits a density of at most 4.8 dwelling units per acre. So the proposed density being 2.95 is actually less than the density for the R1 district. This density is made possible because of the design that is proposed. The total size of the property is 234 acres. However, the developer does not propose to put lots on every single acre of this site. Over 70 acres of the property, precisely 69.31 acre, is proposed, 30% of the property is proposed to be open space. All of this area shown here in green. This will all be open space. It's over 70 acres of the site. The development, therefore, is clustered. Cluster development essentially means the developer is concentrating the lots on specific areas on the property and then leaving large areas of the site undeveloped for environmental reasons, for recreational purposes. If the applicant were to spread the lots across on every single inch of this property, he could create lots that would be minimum 14,000 square feet. But what that will do is we will lose all the amenities that he is proposing on this property. It will also be an intrusion into those environmental sensitive areas that are worth preserving. This cluster design is not strange in Olive Branch. It was used in Wedgwood subdivision, where the developer proposed these lots concentrated. These are 6,500 square feet lots, in Wedgwood that are concentrated in one area, and then you have the rest of the property that's shown there in green that was left to be used as a golf course. So that is the same design concept here. The only difference is instead of it being a golf course, the applicant is proposing other amenities in these open spaces. In terms of lot types and sizes, 4 main lot types are proposed. The lots increase in size, as I did mention, from east to west. In this area, these are what he calls, the developer proposes in the term cottage lots. That would be minimum 1,600 square feet, 6,000 square feet lot in size. And then you have this kind of dark gray color. These are neighborhood lots, which will be minimum 7,200 square feet, having houses with heated area of at least 1,800 square feet. And then further to the west, you have these minimum 10,000 square feet lots called manor lot, which will have houses with heated area minimum 2,000 square feet. Between the subdivision and Pleasant Grove's rural estate, you will have a 50-feet wide buffer, shown here in green. These houses, typical houses that you have for manor lot subdivision, this is generally how the houses are built, and for neighborhood lots. In terms of traffic conditions, there will be 2 main entrances into this side from major streets. One from Goodman Road to the south, and the other from Pork Lane to the west. The development is proposed to be constructed in 16 phases. So beginning from Goodman Road to the south, northward. About 384 houses would have been constructed by the time connection is made to Pork Lane. However, within the first phase of the subdivision, when about 86 to 89 houses would be constructed, this connection to Fox Creek subdivision will be made. So within the first 10 phases of the development, there will already be 2 points of ingress and egress out of this subdivision. Eventually, when the subdivision is completed, this spine road will actually, this will be Forest Hill Irene that would connect to the north up to Kirk Road to the north. Utilities are available on this particular site. Water is available on Goodman Road. Seawall is not currently available on this property, and we'll touch on that when we're discussing the site plan itself. In terms of health and general welfare, crime prevention measures that are proposed, we will also discuss that when we get to the site plan, the project text preliminary plan layout review. This being a rezoning request, the board is required to evaluate the rezoning on 3 main criteria. The first, whether the original zoning classification of the property was a mistake. As I did indicate, the property is zone AR agricultural residential. This property was annexed into the city in 2021 in the last annexation, already zoned agricultural residential by the county. Since the annexation 2 or 3 years ago, this zoning AR residential has not been changed. Therefore, there is no claim that the existing zoning of the property is a mistake. Neither the applicant claims that, nor did the planning commission find that there is any mistake in the existing zoning of the property. The second and the third criteria are linked. They're actually like one. The board has to find that both of these are satisfied, namely that the character of the area has changed and that there is a public need. In terms of the changes in the character of the area, when one looks at the surrounding subdivision, it is noteworthy that Pleasant Grove Estate, which is rural estate in character, was constructed, was developed 1965. It started in 1965 and was completed in 1967. At that time, it was zoned agricultural residential. It was not rezoned, and it was developed as such. Country Meadows is right in this area, about 3 or 4 lots in this area that constitute the Country Meadows subdivision. That was developed in 1989. It was also zoned AR at the time, agricultural residential, was developed as such, and remains rural estate in character. All the other subdivisions in this area, 4 of them in particular, namely Fox Creek to the east, adjoining this property. Fox Creek was developed from 1997 to 2000. It was zoned agricultural residential at the time. The developer requested that the county rezone it from AR to PUD, which is basically the same thing that this applicant is requesting that we do today. The R3 district in the city is basically the same designation for residential PUD in the county. The county did rezone it, permitting the development of Fox Creek from agricultural residential district to the suburban single-family residential character. There is also Bourbon to the south in this area that was developed from 1997 to 2005. It was zoned AR at the time, rezoned to an R15 overlay district, and developed with lots that are less than 1 acre in size, suburban residential in character. Laurel Brook in this area developed 2006 to 2009. It was zoned agricultural residential, rezoned by the county to PUD, single-family residential with lots that are less than 1 acre, developed suburban single-family residential. Center Hill Plantation, which is further to the east, that is currently undeveloped, as such is not shown on this map in front of you. Its plan was modified in 2018. It will be mixed use, horizontal mixed use. There's commercial in some area, and it permits single-family residential lots that will be minimum in size 6,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet. The application before you essentially follows this same trend for Fox Creek, Brayburn, Laurel Brook, and Center Hill plantation developments for suburban residential lots that are less than 1 acre in size. The predominant character of this area from a residential development perspective since the 1990s has changed from rural estate to suburban residential development, which aligns with what the applicant is proposing tonight. In terms of public need, the future land use map of the city designates the property as suburban neighborhood. Suburban neighborhood generally refers to lots that are less than 1 acre in size. Most of them in the city, they range between 6,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. Those are all suburban neighborhood lots. The proposed development, therefore, aligns with the comprehensive plan of the city. In this regard, the 2 criteria, namely the change in the character of the area from rural estate to suburban residential development, and the public need criteria articulated in the comprehensive plan are met. It is in this regard that the Planning Commission, at its meeting on December 12, recommended approval subject to the number of conditions. And I would like to go back and call attention to some of this particular slide, because it's worth calling it out based on one of the conditions that the Planning Commission stipulated. When the applicant held the neighborhood meeting, one of the things that the neighborhood stressed was that they did not want interconnectivity between this subdivision, the existing Pleasant Grove subdivision, and the proposed development. They did not want this Pleasant Drive to be connected to the north, although it was stopped for future connection. They also did not want Stanley Drive to be connected. They did not want Eastern Drive to be connected. In the proposed development, and as recommended for your approval by the Planning Commission, those streets will not be connected. those streets will not be connected. The developer will, once and for all, provide hammerheads that will terminate Pleasant Drive, Stanley Drive, and turn around on Eastern Drive once and for all, dead end those streets, so they will not be connected. When this was also submitted for Planning Commission's consideration, Thompson Drive to the south was proposed to be lined up as shown here, directly into the subdivision. One of the neighborhood residents requested that this street be kind of jogged, moved south to the south, and located in this area, so that you don't have direct cut-through traffic into Pleasant Grove. That has actually been done in the revised plan before you for consideration. The Planning Commission, therefore, as I did mention, at its meeting on December 12, unanimously recommended approval by a vote of 5-0, subject to a number of conditions. One of them was that all the neighborhoods and cottage lot categories, those are lots that are, neighborhood lots are 7,200 square feet, and the cottage lots are 6,000 square feet, shall be constructed with front porches. The preliminary plan has been updated, and that condition has been included in the plan. So that condition has already been met. Another condition was that access easement should be provided to the open space, common open space number 6. That is where you have a cemetery on that particular piece of property. The cemetery at this point has not been fully surveyed, mapped out, and clearly designated. We don't know how many of those cemeteries they may exist on this side, dating back to the 1800s. That will have to be done at the preliminary plat stage. The cemeteries adjoin a proposed public street. As such, it is not necessary in this particular area, existing cemetery, it adjoins this proposed public street. As such, an easement is not necessary to access the cemetery. Accessibility can be provided into it directly from the adjoining road. The city engineer has also emphasized that there is need for a sewer capacity study is required because this site eventually is going to discharge into Brabant, and the city is working on a lot of studies with respect to capacity in that particular area. Andy is here present. He can throw more light on that if there is a question. Condition number 10 stipulated that the developer shall complete a traffic impact study for the entire development and submit copies to the city engineer and MDOT before the preliminary plat for phase 1 may be considered by the Planning Commission. Findings from the traffic study may result in improvement requirements in the consideration and approval of the preliminary plat. This morning, I received a copy, Andy and I will receive copies of the preliminary study, the traffic study. I'm sure Andy has not had the time to go through it. They were just made in today, so that the traffic study has been done. And just kind of looking closely at it, quick look at it, it did not show any significant impact beyond the capacity of Goodman Road, which is an arterial road to handle the traffic, and Pork Lane to handle the traffic that will be generated from this development. Condition number 11 required that there should be an increase in the minimum size of houses on the cottage lots. Those are lots that are 6,000 square feet in size, from 15,000 square feet to 1,500 square feet to 1,600 square feet. The applicant has made that revision already in the project text. So the project text were approved today as submitted. The minimum size heated square feet area in that subdivision on cottage lots will be 1,600 square feet, not 1,500. Condition number 14 also required that the applicant move the proposed street, as I did indicate, intersecting Thompson Drive southward to offset it. That has been done in the updated design. Condition number 15, the developer shall survey and depict the precise location of all the cemeteries. There may be one, there may be many on the site. I walked to the site today, and it is hard to really identify how many cemeteries are on that particular property and how many graves are there. Those need to be surveyed, clearly identified, and delineated on the preliminary plan. The Planning Commission also recommended, and this is what stressing, that the developer shall participate in a shared funding of sewer infrastructure improvement, including but not limited to shared pump station and force main that may be necessary to provide public sewer to the development. In this regard, the developer shall work with the city engineer and the city attorney on the details of the shared funding agreement, which shall be based on the principle of rough proportionality, basically the impact that this development is going to create. The drafted agreement shall be presented to the Board of Aldermen for its approval at the consideration of the preliminary plat for phase 1 of the development. This condition was added, it was discussed at the Planning Commission, but we deemed it necessary to articulate it as an approval condition before the Board of Aldermen considers the application tonight. This concludes staff's presentation. In terms of decision options that are before the board basically has 4 options, 3 main options. Sorry. The first, the board can approve the application as presented, subject to various conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission, or the board can approve the application with modifications to various conditions. For example, the board may require a minimum 75% masonry material for all building facades. It's currently 2/3 on all facades. Currently, minimum 2/3 has to be masonry. The board wanted to increase that to 75%. The board can do so. The board may also require an increase in the lot sizes. For example, the manor lots are proposed, that's the largest lots on this property, are proposed to be 10,000 square feet. The board may require that that be increased to 12,000 or 15,000 square feet. That is those increase in the sizes of the lots and the heated square footage or area of houses. There's a discussion that the board can have with the developer and require accordingly. The board may also deny this application and state its reasons thereto. If the board wanted to make these changes or recommend that particular changes be made, you could specify those changes and still approve the application. In other words, you approve the application subject to any of those changes that you want be made. You could specify those changes and remand the application back to the Planning Commission for reconsideration, or you could table the application and require the applicant to make those changes and then bring them back before you for consideration. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Song. Does the board have any questions regarding the staff report? Mr. Wallace?
Hassan, what was the lot sizes of Fox Creek?
I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat the question, please?
Mr. Wallace asked what were lot sizes for Fox Creek.
The lot sizes for Fox Creek, they range in the project text for Fox Creek. They range from 7,000, minimum is 7,000 square feet in Fox Creek.
That's the minimum?
That is a minimum in the project text. Now, in actual development, the applicant, the developer might have constructed more than that, but in the project text, they were permitted to have lots minimum 7,000 square feet.
Do we know what they are at the ones across the street at Brayborn?
Brayborn is an R15. The way the county use R15 is R15 overlay. You have lots that are minimum 15,000 square feet, but they are permitted to have a certain percentage of lots that are less than 15,000. So you have some of them that are in the 12,000 square feet range, but the majority are minimum 15,000 square feet.
All right. One other question. The cemeteries, is there any idea how many cemeteries are out there? Any idea? We know of one, but
We don't know exactly how many they are. They will actually need to, because a detailed survey has not been done, which usually the developer will get into that when they're doing the preliminary plat phase. So if these were approved, that's why you have that condition. If these were approved, then when the developer is bringing the preliminary plat in front of you for consideration, at that time, they will have to survey the property, get into the details, identify all the cemeteries, what particular area. Maybe they occupy 1 acre in size, each of them, we don't know. At this point, they will have to identify each of them, clearly delineate them, and I would say provide a plan to the board on how they will be maintained.
if they're from the 1800s, you won't be able to do it with just site location. You'll have to do it with the ones where they do it from the air and look into the ground.
There are a couple of machines out there that I think the developer is working on that already, which they will be able to shoot on the ground and determine what is going on.
Okay.
They would be able to determine that.
Any additional questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Song, I have a clarification, please, sir. Currently as proposed, it looks like 82% of the lots are 6,000 square feet.
Yes, sir.
If we were to work on reduction of that by percentages, and it's mentioned by cluster, does that mean we could have, say, 20% in this cluster, 20% here, or would that be a percentage in the overall project? If we were to reduce that percentage?
It would be advisable. The cluster design is the best design on this particular property because of the environmental features, the creek, the floodplain, and all of that. That is the best design to have on this side. You could use any of the approaches. You could go by percentage, which will give the developer flexibility on where he may want to locate those lots.
So, for example, looking at this map, upper right-hand corner, we could have a set percentage of smaller lots in that section, go down to the very bottom, close to 302, another percentage there, as opposed to the entire project.
You could do that, but if you consider the layout, I think this map is better. The idea here was to increase the lot as you get closer to Pleasant Grove Estate, since that is where you have the larger lot subdivision. So they had minor lots in this area, which is 10,000 square feet, and then you have the neighborhood lots next to it, which is 7,200, and then the rest, that is where you have your cottage lots. So if you wanted to increase the lot sizes, or in terms of percentage, it will be preferable from a planning perspective to maintain the general layout. Let the lot sizes increase as you get closer to Pleasant Grove Estate
Okay.
subdivision.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Any additional board questions?
Why wouldn't we have them larger on the outside, gradually go smaller to the inside and gradually go larger to the outside like we did at Gwynn Farms? To try to blend it in with the rest of the house.
I think considering this design considers what is currently surrounding the property. It's really based on what is currently surrounding the property. If the board required, for example, that you have the larger lots in this front and then the smaller lots to the back, then you will have a situation where you will have smaller lots adjoining these other lots here, which are larger in size. A preferable way to do it from a sound planning perspective will be to ensure that the larger lots adjoin the existing larger lot subdivision. So Pleasant Grove Estates, that's where you have minimum 1 acre in size. This area where you have the yellow, design in yellow, shown here in yellow, those are all minor lots, minimum 10,000 square feet. Fox Creek, in this area, you could. That could be done. That could be done. Fox Creek is 7,000 square feet. All of these lots here are proposed to be 6,000 square feet. If the board wanted these lots here to be increased, maybe transition from the same 7,000 square feet and then go down to 6,000 square feet, that could be done. Of course, the total number of lots in the subdivision will reduce.
Mayor, I'd like to clarify with the song.
Yes.
On this, going back to the cemetery,
Yes, ma'am.
there can be some restrictions to put on how to preserve the cemeteries. Are you saying we do that when this comes back as a preliminary plat? If
Yes,
it
ma'am.
passes?
The proposal will be, or the recommendation will be for that to be done at the preliminary plat stage, because at that time, a number of things will become clearer. First, how many cemeteries do we have out there, where precisely they are located, because that may, let's say if they go out and they find out there is a cemetery right here, then this plan will have to be changed. You cannot put houses over the cemetery. So they will have to do the preliminary plat, determine precisely where you have the cemeteries on this property. That may actually, if you have more cemeteries, then the number of lots is going to go down too. And then delineate those cemeteries clearly and provide a plan to the board with respect to the maintenance, preservation and maintenance. For example, they could be put in common open spaces, which the homeowners association will be charged with maintaining them. We also do not know the state of the graves, whether the slabs on the top, the stability, we don't know. All of that would need to be taken care of and presented before you clearly at the preliminary plat stage.
Thank you.
And that can be included as a condition of, if the board were inclined to approving this, you could include that as a condition of this approval. Basically requiring that the developer submit a clear plan with regard to the identification and the maintenance of all the cemeteries on this particular property at phase 1 of the preliminary plat, during phase 1 of the preliminary plat.
Let me ask you, did y'all ever propose to the developer, I noticed some of the increased manner, some of the suggestions it might be from planning department about the increasing the size of the lots and the square footage, or is that just a suggestion y'all made and I need to talk to the developer?
We had that suggestion. We've not had a discussion with the developer in terms of increasing the lot sizes. I think that was at a planning commission meeting. After the planning commission meeting, staff report including those particular recommendations have been sent to the developer. We've not had any feedback from the developer indicating that these will not work.
All right, so we probably need to address it with the developer, right? I mean, I just wondered if y'all had addressed it also with them.
Yeah.
'Cause I do like the cluster building like you suggested, but if not, then I like the larger lots and the larger square footage. But I addressed it with the developer. Thank you.
Any other
I'll
questions?
just make the comment also about the cluster. There's been a lot of suggestions on social media and different things else about trying to preserve as much trees and natural stuff on property that we develop. People don't want every tree cut down on every lot that's in the city of Olive Branch. This one leaves 70 acres of trees and natural stuff that's out there and still gets a lot of houses. We may change the lot sizes and reduce the number of houses, but this cluster design gives us a lot of natural habitat that stays, which has been very important to a lot of people on some of these applications that we've seen.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Any other questions from the board?
A song, one more. In the green spaces, there's also detention areas. Are a lot of the green spaces flood zones?
In some areas, there is a creek that flows down in this particular area, so that's a flood zone, and it's important to leave those flood zones because you have a floodway currently designated in this northern area of the property. The developer has actually carried out a floodplain study to the standard required by FEMA, and that study will be submitted to FEMA for a clear designation of the floodway, the floodplain limits, to make sure that none of these houses flood. So that is being done. The only disturbance that is really proposed in this area, it will be a 40 feet long, 4,000 feet long trail, walking trail. And that's a very good amenity for this particular subdivision, because the streets will all be constructed with curb, gutter, and sidewalks. All the streets in this subdivision, they will have curb, gutter, sidewalks. In addition to that, to make sure that these open spaces do not become areas where you can have crime, because they are large, you have living these natural trees, people can hide in those areas and do all kinds of things. It's important to make them active amenities. And one of the ways to do that from a crime prevention perspective is to put in a walking trail that allows people to actually be walking in those areas. And then a few spots designated here in blue, that's where you will have stormwater management detention on the property.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you have a map that has the phases on it?
I am not so sure whether I have. I don't think I have it. In your booklet, if the board has the
Okay,
booklet.
that's fine. We can go back to the map that you were on. Is there a chance that they would add another pool, another dog park, and there are like 2 mail clusters, and we're talking about 691 houses, and you've got 2 areas where you go get your mail. 1 dog park, 1 pool. That's a lot of houses.
In terms of amenities, the amenities they are proposing here include, you have the trail, you have the pickleball court down here in the south, to the south area, you have this swimming pool area. This is also common open space with a swimming pool. Sorry, my mouse is not really working well. Right there in the middle, you have the dog park to the northeast, and then you have a pocket park here. If the board wanted to require that also another amenity be added there, you could do so. And then you have this one in this particular area that a specific amenity has not really been proposed in that particular area. You could require that be done. The condition we have in the staff report is that when these are brought in for preliminary plat, the applicant needs to specify what amenities will actually be in these parks. They need to be specified at that time. In terms of mailboxes, the other woman is correct. You have a mailbox clustered in this area from Pork coming into the property. This first roundabout beside the swimming pool, Jason, can you point to that for me, please? The first roundabout right there beside the swimming pool. That roundabout is going to have a waterfall feature on that side. So that's the design that the developer is proposing. More amenities could be added if the board wanted them to do so.
Does the applicant have anything to add before public comments begin? The question, we take public comments in a moment. The applicant will speak now, and you'll have a chance at the public comments after that. Protocol will be the applicant will speak, the board will ask any other questions they have, and then the proponents who are for this development will come forward and give their public input, and then the opponents who are against it will be able to give their input as well. Okay. Just remind everyone when you come forward to state your name and address for the clerk, please.
Speak up. What's up? There we go. Is it working now? Great. Okay, I'm TJ Cates. I work as a consultant, and I've worked on this project for over a year. I want to thank everybody that spent time on it. We had a neighborhood meeting last summer, and we covered quite a few items, and I believe we got those done. We came back and did some more changes. As you can tell, We've continually been trying to make this the best community. As you know, the market is changing. The interest rates are not that bad, but they're not great. The need for people with big lots, you know, they're not needed with septic tanks and well water anymore. A lot of young professionals, a lot of 55 and ups are not wanting to be off by themselves in apartments or in retirement communities. They're wanting to take their space up in a community where they can have neighbors. That's why we spent so much time on the green space that we have. That's why we have so much, the pickleball, we have swimming pool, we have sidewalks, we have everything that's going in. It's going to be a very nice neighborhood. Everybody says that. One thing about it, it's not going to be an inexpensive place to live, and that's one of the downsides when people look at lot sizes and they think we're just trying to take small lots. They think that we're trying to build small houses. That's absolutely not the case. The good thing about it is because when we come into the neighborhood, and I was actually working with the builder back in 97, 98, Bowden Homes, which is family business, and we built Fox Creek, and I was actually working in that model home. And that was the time for that late 90s, early 2000s. Now people just basically want a small lot. They want a front load garage. They want to have a nice backyard with a nice little place to entertain. They want to have a place for their dogs back in the back. But people do not want bigger lots anymore. I mean, obviously not everybody wants a small lot, but the majority of the houses, people are going to stand in line to buy these homes. And what we're trying to do is make an attainable, nice community for all these people that are coming to Olive Branch every day, that are working, that are taking the dollars and they're going to Tate County, they're going to Marshall County, they're taking it back to Shelby County. I think it's a great thing. I understand, I've been told that the warehouses is a place the city might make more money than they do a neighborhood, but a neighborhood and a community in this newly annexed area, I think is a really good idea. I hope that y'all approve it. I have Mr. Porter here, which is our engineer, and he's the one that can answer all the detailed questions. I can answer little questions if you have anything.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of this representative for the application?
Mr. Porter, the engineer, can come up and answer any direct
Mr. Case.
questions. Thank you, Mr. Hassan.
Mr. Case. Mr. Case. You said that I get a lot of calls wanting to know why we're getting smaller and smaller lots. I never get one saying I want a smaller lot. I get them saying we want a little bit larger lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why we keep saying everybody wants smaller lots and no larger lots. I get calls all the time about why are the lots getting smaller. I get them all the time.
Yes, sir.
I've never had one call that say I need a smaller lot. I've had a bunch of them say, hey, why are the lots getting so small? We can't find any with this bigger lots.
Yeah, I understand. I know that you get a ton of calls and you do an excellent job, and we appreciate it. We're talking about young professionals that want to come in and they don't necessarily want to live in Memphis right now, and they're waiting until 35 or 40 to start a family where they used to in their 20s. They're not going to get out and cut the grass and keep it up. They're going to have to pay somebody, and then a lot of the people in the 55 and up, like myself, I just got my zero turn and I never thought I'd have one, and I hope I never need one again, because you spend hours and hours so you can have a pretty yard for a few days. That's the people I'm talking about. Obviously, it's not the people that have been in Olive Branch and been good residents. What I would like to see for North Mississippi, and what I fight for all the time, is us get those people that are moving from Seattle or moving from San Antonio, moving outside of Nashville, the suburbs, and if we can get those young professionals in there, the median income goes up also. So they're going to drop their money in Olive Branch. We can start getting more sit-down restaurants and a little bit more entertainment without going into Memphis. But I know what you're talking about. Your residents have been here forever. So maybe it's changing. Thank you.
Mr. Porter, anything else to add that hasn't been presented? Does the board have any questions of Mr. Porter on this application?
I want, following up kind of what David said, did y'all not think about clustering some of these? If you want to put smaller lots, rather than, it looks like they're all over. I mean,
really, we did. We kind of just looked at the topography. We looked at what we had with the streams and everything. So, and then frankly, we looked at considered Pleasant Grove next to us, and really tried to create this insular design with a buffer around the outside, either through the streams or even the 50-foot buffer on the west end side. We tried to really just make this where once you're in here, you know you're in it, but when you're on the outside, you don't really see it as much.
Yeah.
So that's really what we try to take care of with the cluster design.
yeah, the way I'm looking at development here, and I mean, the way it's laid out here, I'd almost be like what some of the suggestions we could do, increase all the lots, increase all the square footage and all that. But if you clustered them some, I might would consider them more, you know, because I mean, the smaller lots and stuff. Because I understand where you're coming from. I mean, Windstone has smaller lots, some of those do.
Yeah, I
and
guess
stuff,
proof
but-
to the north of us.
But when it's just laid out like this, to me, it's just too much, almost. You know, and when you put, you know, the square footage in there, yeah, I'm not naive enough to think most of them's gonna end up with the minimum square footage. You know, it doesn't mean they can't, but, yeah, I just wondered, you know, I was just trying to reiterate what David said about the larger lots, the way it's laid out.
Mhm.
But if you laid it out a little different, or we can go back and just change all the square footage and lot size. You know, I mean, Well, I
Mr.
mean,
Wallace, speak in the mic, if you
yeah,
will. Thank you.
yeah, your option, yeah, I mean, that we could increase them all. Yeah, but it probably loses their density and all that. And if you clustered it more somewhere, yeah, you might have the smaller in the side of it. I'm like David, the outside, maybe a little larger. But it's just my opinion on the thing. I was looking at what the planning, you know, people possibly suggested. You know, I'm just trying to talk to you and see what did y'all consider all that stuff?
We did. We looked at it from different angles, and a lot of it was just what we were kind of given with the property on there, and just kind of working around that property. Also considering, you know, what we already had around us. You know, I guess it's probably more, commiserate to what we have to the east, and we recognize that Pleasant Grove was, when it was part of the county, and was not part of Olive Branch. And I mean, frankly, when that was here, there was nothing else really around it.
I do like the amenities on it, but I'm kind of like
And that's,
Pat over there about the swimming pool. One swimming pool, for the way it's laid out, is almost not enough.
and that's
If you want that much density.
sorry. That's a big part is the amenities in here, is a big part of the development, is that we are trying to provide something really, really nice to development, but we don't know, I think you can overburden an HOA too with the cost of maintenance on these things. So it's kind of trying to find that happy medium with providing something that's really, really nice, but also not being too much where you're gonna put pressure on the HOA in the future in 10, 15 years.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mayor, I
That's
had a
one of
question.
the issues that comes up when you've got too many amenities with an HOA. I've got a lot of experience with being an HOA president. You put a lot on a lot of these people. They're all volunteers, and they're trying to handle 2 swimming pools and all this other stuff, and all the grass cutting that's got to be done. It becomes almost unmanageable for somebody that's not, not a professional. You may have a management company that helps with that, but still it comes down to the HOA people that are responsible for it, and that's a lot to put on the HOA for 2 pools. I know it'd be nice to have, but 1 pool is a lot. 2 pools would almost be impossible for a group of homeowners to try to manage.
Mr. Earhart?
Is there a representative from D.R. Horton here, or are you representing them tonight?
There is.
A bit, okay, because I saw him real quick while he's coming up, and I'm looking through here, the minimum setback on fronts is still 35 feet. We're retaining that in all lots from the street.
It's 25.
25, because I'm 25,
25.
okay.
25 feet.
Okay,
25.
on all lots,
Setback 25 feet.
okay.
Yes.
I just wanted that clarification, thank you.
Good evening. Ryan Vargo, 4150 Summers Place Drive, Olive Branch, Mississippi.
Ryan, you said?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Ryan, one of the questions I had for you, and that I see sometimes in mass-built homes, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that, because I understand economies of scale and return on the dollar, but whether it's you guys or Adams or Grant, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, because I'm not a builder, but I see 24-inch centers with trusses, and we typically get OSB board or plywood. And within 6 months or 8 months, you're seeing waves, and we have code issues and maintenance issues. So my question is, do you think you guys would object to A, going to 16-inch centers, or B, using 1x8 as your decking?
Not at all. We'll gladly work with any municipality that suggests that. We do it in other municipalities around Memphis, such as Tipton County. They require those.
Mr. Fargo, one moment. I just want to remind all the speakers that have a microphone to lean in the microphone so the audience can hear. We're getting feedback from YouTube
Gotta be a
being
DJ,
monitored.
get
Our
right
guests
up
at
on
home can't hear, so please speak in the mic.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
So yes, absolutely. We'd be not opposed to that at all. As a matter of fact, we do it already in other municipalities around Memphis. And we work with the local building department. If the building department suggests 16 on center, we can do that, or 3/4 plywood. That's not a problem at all. Either or would be fine with
Okay.
us.
Well, I
Absolutely.
appreciate it, because we don't want to run the price too high, but at the same time, we don't want 8, 10 years down the road, maintenance issues and other things, so
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other question for the applicant? Board, any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
If you're here to speak on behalf of this application, if you're here to speak for this proposed development, come forward, please. Final call for anyone that would like to speak for this application on behalf of it. You are for it. Seeing none, anyone here to speak against this applicant, come forward against this application. Come forward to the microphone. And just a reminder, 3 minutes, you'll hear the timer, and also state your name and address when you begin for the clerk. And one last reminder on the little blue cards when you leave, so we can capture your name and address for the minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Tim Leggett, live at 7339 Polk Lane. Just got a couple of questions. The last meeting we had, our Polk Lane is the old Polk Lane. We got 2 Polk Lanes, the new one for all the warehouses. We got the old one. And in the meeting, we all discussed, and everybody decided not to open the old Polk Lane, leave it dead end. And we live on the dead end. And that road is narrow. I'm retired. Everybody down through there, we walk every day. And so you open that up, and you got 691 houses. That's 1,400 cars going to be traveling around. So we don't want the old Polk Lane opened up. Leave it with the median strip like we got it, because if it's opened up, you have tractor trailers coming down in front of our house. And I don't know if you've gone down the new Polk Lane lately, but there's trash all down through there where all these people working in the warehouses are throwing trash out. You turn on State Line Road, there's even a toilet sitting there on the side of the road and all the trash. So we want to keep our road as a dead end, and then we agreed a 50-foot easement on the back. And I just want to make sure all that is still the same and nothing's changed. Because I know
Who was
with
that?
all the different changes that people try to do, some of it gets changed.
Who was that meeting
And,
with? Was that the planning commission meeting, or Song, are you familiar with the meeting he's referencing?
Yeah, it was,
That was at the neighborhood meeting.
Okay.
And everything that he has mentioned, nothing has changed.
yeah, because
All
I
of
know
this
on
respects
your
that.
map today, it just showed one Polk Lane, and it didn't, it don't show the old Polk Lane. And so we just want to make sure the old Polk Lane stays closed, because if not, we won't be able to walk or anything with all the tractor trailers coming back and forth and people throwing trash and all that stuff. And so I'm happy, as long as they keep our road dead end, because we own the very next, the 2 lots on the dead end part. And that way I don't have to worry about people throwing trash. I'm already picking up trash in the median strip already. And but then with the 50-foot in the back easement, that'll help some. And, because, I mean, we got a lot of wildlife that some people don't know. We actually got a cougar living in the area. I've got videos of it. And I know all that's fixing to be gone, but I just want to make sure we'll have the buffer and that my road stays a dead end and not have all the traffic.
And I heard you say you were happy. Clerk, please
Well, I
capture
mean,
that.
I
We
don't-
hardly ever
we- I
hear
mean,
happy
nobody-
used in this meeting, so thank you very much. And we want to make sure us all that
Nobody
we have
actually
done
wants
those
it,
items.
but I mean, it's gonna be a done deal no matter
Thank
what
you.
we say, but I just wanna make sure that, you know, that, I mean, everybody in the subdivision, in that old subdivision is retired pretty much, and they've worked hard, and they don't want a lot of riffraff moving in all around us and, you know, causing trouble.
Understood.
So, and,
Thank,
and like I said, we know it's a pretty much gonna happen, but I just wanna make sure that our little spot stays the same. All
Thank
right?
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I do want to just gingerly address one thing. I heard him say that it's going to happen. It's not going to happen until this board votes, and they'll vote yea or nay. I've been sitting here when they approved some of these applications, and I've been sitting here when they denied them. So please understand, this board is a citizen of this city just like you are. They want what's best for this city, and no decisions made until the votes tallied, okay? Anybody else here to speak against this application? You are opposed to this application, or you have concerns about it? Anyone at all? For or against this application? Final call before we close public comments? Hearing none, public comments are closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make one other comment on this. I follow a lot of social media to keep kind of a pulse on what's going on. One of the biggest requests and needs expressed for this area is they need a grocery store on the eastern side of town. We approved a large project at the southeast corner of Hacks and 302 here a few months back, and the developer, one of his hopes for that project is to have a grocery store there. But to have a grocery store and make it profitable for somebody, they need rooftops. So this is an application or an opportunity for some developer to come in, maybe if they got enough rooftops, to be able to add a grocery store, which is very much needed on that side of town. So, just that's one of the considerations I've got, is that people want that, but how can we help make it happen?
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson. One editorial comment on social media, and I'll be brief. Please be very leery of social media. Call City Hall, call the mayor's office, call the planning commission. We're going to tell you the truth. There are people that I reach out to, and I'll say, sir or ma'am, that's just not right. That didn't happen. And they say, I don't care, Mayor, I'm just stirring the pot. That's what they say now. So sometimes you have trolls that are living 5 states over. They don't even live in Olive Branch. So be leery. Sure, it's a good tool for some cases, but call City Hall. We're going to tell you the truth. We're going to find the answer for you. Call, and we'll do that. Any other input from the board, or any questions, input, or motions?
Mayor, I would like to tender a motion if I may.
Okay.
I'd like to exercise one of our options. I think the general consensus tonight is this is a very good design in many ways. I think there's a lot of great amenities. There seems to be a lot of question and concern about the way it's designed in terms of the clusters. So I'd like to make a motion to table it and let our applicant work with staff on maybe redesigning some of the lot sizes, the number of lots. And Mr. Dye, if I have to be more specific, I can, or can we work with staff to get with applicant? You need some more specifics from me, or?
No, if you're
Okay.
making a motion to table, that motion as worded would be sufficient.
Okay, that would be my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Earhart. And Mr. Dye is the legal counsel for the city of Olive Branch, if you have not met him. So there's a motion that has been made to table this until some adjustments and fine-tuning can be made from Mr. Earhart. Is there a second to that motion? Second, Ms. Hamilton. Any discussion?
Are we asking for the lot sizes to change in this meeting, or are we just asking to change the design of it?
I'm going to direct it to, if you look at our decision options number 3 toward the very back, just to direct our staff to work with the applicant to change some of the lot sizes in terms of a percentage aspect, some of the material, i.e. 75% brick, some of the rooftop centers and decking that I mentioned.
Okay.
But let our staff work with the applicant to come up with those type aspects, but not really alter the overall design tremendously.
Are we asking it to be tabled and to come back before us, or are we remanding back to the planning commission?
I'd like for it to come back to us, the Board of Aldermen.
Okay.
One last thing I would mention on that is that you need to, in your motion, if it were to be approved, the board would need to have it tabled to a date certain,
Okay.
so that the public and the board would know when it's coming back before the Board of Aldermen.
I would say, Mr. Gambone and applicant, is 4 weeks sufficient? Maybe go to the last meeting, because I don't want to rush things, but I don't want to table it indefinitely. I'm thinking what's the date for our second meeting in March?
Second meeting in March is the March 19th meeting.
Roughly 4 weeks. Is that sufficient on our staff and you guys from a time perspective? Okay, then I'd
I'm
make that
hearing yes.
motion.
Could I address some comments that the board made? I thought we were going to have another opportunity to speak, but
I'll yield to the mayor on that one.
Go ahead with your comment.
Alderman Dickerson, I think what you mentioned about the pools and the burden on the HOA is quite a major concern of ours. We've looked at this and we try to use economy of scales, as you had mentioned before, Alderman Earhart, to mitigate some of those costs for these homeowners that purchase the homes within our communities. So currently, we are planning for over $2 million worth of amenities in this community. That would include entrance monumentation, landscape packages across the frontage of 302, to the amenity center with the pool house, pickleball court, and active common space. The pool should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 square feet roughly, based on a design that we're doing currently in Villages at South Branch. Our engineers are currently working on that design as we speak and finalizing the construction documents to bring before planning and building department here very shortly. So that being said, we really like to emphasize a sense of community and bring those neighborhoods into a picture that really no one in this area has painted for the residents of DeSoto County. And I cannot say enough good things about how D.R. Horton accomplishes that. We use third-party management companies with our HOAs to mitigate any risk of going defunct. We fully fund our HOAs until the last home closes, and if needed, after the last home closes, to make sure that we're setting those HOAs up for success in the maintenance of those amenities. Another thing that we do is try to take, on the lot sizes, I'm going to go back to the lot sizes. I'm not sure who mentioned it specifically, but the lot sizes are definitely something that's concerned. I think Alderman Collins mentioned it. And, you know, realistically, we are seeing a trend of homeowners that are actually, in essence, fighting over a smaller lot. In cove lot situations, I have personally built homes for D.R. Horton customers, homeowners, future homeowners, that they're like, that lot's really large. Are you sure this is the house that I chose? That's a big cove lot. I'm gonna have to buy a mower. And they'll, yes, sir, this is definitely your lot. Well, why can't I have that one right next door that's square and smaller? I don't want to have to buy a mower. That is the trend that we're seeing more and more frequently.
So, Ryan, may I ask you a question on that?
Absolutely.
Because that's one of my disconnects, and I think Alderman Wallace is saying, where are you hearing that? Because coming out of COVID, all we hear is, I want a place to spread out. I need some yard. And the people that I talk with, and I'm not a developer or builder,
Sure.
But insurance and finances, they want a little bit of a yard to play with the kids, to walk, you know, and I get not having to cut grass, but you're going to have people you can hire. Your HOA may have amenities. So can you share with me where you hear those comments? What cities?
Absolutely, absolutely. I can personally,
Demographics, age group, et cetera.
from firsthand experience, I see it young and old. Older folks coming into retirement are downsizing into our homes for that reason. They would rather have active common open spaces such as walking trails to utilize, dog parks, things of that nature, pools, pool houses, be able to take their grandkids to the park or a playground or the pickleball court or whatever it may be that's offered within that community. Now, to be fully transparent, in Memphis, we have not yet had the full opportunity to see a master plan community developed all the way through and sold and built out. And I say Memphis is the whole North Mississippi, Memphis market. So, but I can assure you, across the nation, D.R. Horton, we are masters of master plan communities and implementing those amenities for our homeowners. Texas, I mean, some of these communities in Texas are 2,500 to 5,000 lots, and they have water parks, full-on water slides available. Now, can we do that with a 690 lot community? Absolutely not, or it would overburden that HOA. But we certainly can offer the max that HOA can afford. Currently, with the amenities that we have planned, we estimate common open spaces, everything, maintenance of all the grass and everything, with 690 lots, we estimate those dues to be somewhere around $750 a year for each home. So again, those are managed by a third-party management company, so those dues are collected. Any liens or anything from unpaid dues would be levied through the HOA management company, and we truly set them up for success from the front end. So I'm really excited about this community. I'm fortunate to be a resident of Olive Branch myself, and am really proud of what D.R. Horton's done and is doing in villages at South Branch currently. The smaller lots, I definitely recognize your concern, and we're happy to address that with the planning department. But
Thank you, Mr. Vargo.
yeah,
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and focus the board back
Thank
on.
you.
We do have
Thank you for your
a
comment.
motion and a second. Motion, Mr. Earhart, if I understand right, is to table it to date certain until 3/19 and allow the developer to work with planning. Is that correct?
Correct.
Was there a second on that motion? Ms. Hamilton, second. Any more discussion from the board? All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Table to 3/19, date certain. Continuing on the old business item, old business agenda. Item 3 is, this is a public hearing date for consideration of application for a zoning map amendment submitted by Nick Croonan of Civil League on behalf of property owner Scott Vanderberg. The request is to rezone the potential Lot 2 of the Vanderberg Commercial Subdivision Phase 2 containing 41.21 plus or minus acres from O Office District to C2 Highway Commercial District to R4 Multifamily Residential District, and to adopt the site development plan for Vanderberg Plats for the purpose of creating 410 multifamily residential units. The property is located between Highway 302 and Goodman Road East, approximately 1/4 mile west of Hacks Cross Road. This public hearing date was set for January the 16th. We talked about the severe weather date, and it was carried forward until this date. Is there a staff report, please?
Mayor and Mr. Song, if I may. Mayor, there was a petition of opposition submitted in regard to this matter. You have on your screen a map that shows obviously the subject property and also the signature or the property owned by two of the individuals that own property adjacent to one side of the subject property. State law says that if you have a petition that is submitted by opponents who own 20% of the property adjacent to any one side of the property that's up for rezoning, that supermajority petition could force an elevated voting standard of 3/5 of the Board of Aldermen, which would require a 5-member vote rather than a simple majority of 4 out of 7. In order to recognize that and for the record to be clear and for the audience to understand what the required vote is for approval, it would be my recommendation that the board recognize the petition in your packet as sufficient to require the supermajority voting standard. And Mayor, that would require a motion, second, and a vote.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dye. Board, any questions after reviewing that packet of opposition? Any questions? If not, any motions to accept it and to move this into a supermajority status for voting?
I'll make a motion to accept the petition and require the supermajority.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Dickerson, accept petition and move to supermajority. Second, Mr. Wallace. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Mr. Dye?
No, sir.
Okay. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As you did mention, before you, Board of Aldermen, is a request to consider the rezoning of a piece of property at the intersection, southwest intersection of Highway 302 and Goodman Road. This is the piece of property in question designated here in red. That is just north of Amanda Drive. You have the subdivision to the south. The gas station is currently under construction at this intersection. Now, the total existing lot 2, so that gas station is on lot 1 of the Vanderberg subdivision. Lot 2 is designated here in green. The total area of that lot 2 shown in green is 51.52 acres. The applicant is only requesting rezoning for 41.21 acres designated here in the area shown in red. So not the entirety of the 51.52 acres is requested for rezoning, only a portion of it. The rest of the property will maintain its current C2 zoning, C2 which is Highway Commercial Zoning District. Part of that property or the area that is requested for rezoning is currently Zone O, which is the office district. It totals over 28 acres. And then the rest of the property, the entire Vanderberg Lot 2, the rest of it, which is 28.02 acres, only 17.21 acres of that is requested for rezoning. Now, there is something I wish to stress on this plan, on this particular site. The office district, so the request is to rezone this property from office and C2 to R4. So there are two existing zoning districts, the old office district and the C2 highway commercial district, which the applicant is requesting that both of them be rezoned to R4 high density residential district. The old office, which is currently shown here in blue, currently permits by right. They can have uses on that property such as banks, beauty shop, daycare or nursery school, doctor and other professional offices, public service facilities. Those are the main uses that are permitted by right now in that office area. The C2 highway commercial district area, that is that entire 28.02 acres. The applicant right now can build, or you can have by right, heavy equipment sales and retail on that property by right. That will not come before the Planning Commission, it will not come before this board. They will just turn in construction plans, approve administratively, and they go ahead and construct. You can also have hotels and motels on that property in the C2 area by right. You can have lumber yards in that particular area. You can have motor vehicle sales and services. So you can have a car lot. You know, if a Ford dealership wanted to go on that property right now, it could go on that property without any rezoning, without going through this process. That can go on that property. You can have restaurants on that side. You can have grocery stores. We're mentioning the one at the intersection that was approved for the PD at the southeast intersection of Hags and Goodman. You can have grocery stores on this particular property. Kroger wanted to go there now. If Walmart wanted to build again on this side, they can do that right now, and without going through this rezoning process. You can have a truck route center on this piece of property. I highlight this because in considering this rezoning, Planning Commission had to take into consideration a certain perspective. The impact of the proposed development relative to what can already go on the site. Especially from a traffic perspective. If you can have major retail on this property by right, what is that relative to what the applicant is proposing? Those are some of the considerations that the Planning Commission had to make on this particular application. The purpose of the rezoning is from the office district and the C2 highway commercial district is for the development of the Vanderberg flats. These will essentially be a big house, multi-family residential development concept. The houses will be as shown on this particular image before you. You have a clubhouse. You have a total of 410 units on 41.21 acres. That will be a density of 9.95 dwelling units per acre. The R4 zoning district permits a maximum density of 15 dwelling units per acre. So the applicant is proposing 9.95 dwelling units per acre. The site will also be territorially defined. By this I mean it will be fenced in. There will be a fence at the entrance. This is location right here at the entrance. So you have a gate right here, and there is another gate right here. And then the entire property is fenced on this side in the front, and then you have a fence along this western edge. Along Highway 302, you have the state access control fence, just as you have for the vineyards. So this property will be fenced all through. It will be gated, and it will have a buffer yard surrounding it. Along to the west of the property, that will be a 50 feet wide buffer yard. You will also have that 50 feet wide along Highway 302. Along Goodman Road and the rest of the property that will remain C2 highway commercial, that is proposed to be a 25 feet wide buffer. The development is proposed to be constructed in 2 phases. Phase 1 will include the construction of 21 buildings. So there are a total of 41 buildings on this property, each of them having 10 units. 21 buildings are proposed to be constructed in phase 1. That will be a total of 210 units in this area, phase 1. And then phase 2 will be what you can say the back. That will consist of 20 buildings that will be constructed in phase 2, consisting of 200 residential units. In terms of the buildings as proposed, as I did mention, there will be 41 total in number. There will be 2 stories. There will be 10 units in each building. 3 units will be stacked. So 7 units are not stacked. 3 of the 10 units will be stacked in each of these buildings. The reason there is a site plan, usually when the board is reviewing an application to a conventional zoning district, such as R1 or R2, and not a PD, is that the zoning ordinance requires that for C4, any rezoning to the C4 district, the applicant has to provide a site plan as part of the rezoning application. That site plan is binding. So whatever the board requires or approves today is binding on the applicant. These buildings, 2 stories in height, that will be binding. The applicant cannot, after this meeting, if these were approved, increase these to 3-story buildings. They'll have to stay 2 stories as provided here. To ensure, there has been some times in the city where these things are presented to the board like pictures, they all look nice, shiny, you approve them, and then what is built out there really doesn't look exactly like what was presented before you. I asked the applicant to actually go as far as designing the buildings themselves, architecture-wise, so you don't just have a picture, what they will look like exactly. So this is the architectural design of the buildings, exactly as they would be, with all the elevations, the garages, the colors, the composite shingles, 50% brick, 50% board and batten sidings. You will not have any vinyl sidings on this property. So this is exactly how the building elevations would be designed by the architect. If these were approved, these will be binding on the developer. The board is required to find, just as you had in Kirk Farms, before to rezone the property, 3 criteria, the last 2 being related. The first is whether the original zoning classification for the property was a mistake. The 2 existing zoning districts are office and C2 highway commercial district. The applicant does not claim that the existing zoning district was a mistake. Staff also doesn't find as such. Back in the late 90s, early 2000, when this property was zoned, these zones were designated, it would appear that the office district was created to provide a kind of a transitional buffer between the more intensive C2 highway commercial district and the ARO agricultural residential district. That's why you had that office district kind of sandwich between the two to provide that transitional buffer. There is no claim to the existing zoning district being a mistake. The second criteria is for the board to find whether there has been a change in the character of the area and that there is a public need for the requested rezoning. In terms of the character of the area, there are a number of developments. First, area can be liberally, usually we go a mile from that particular piece of property, a quarter mile, half mile, mile radius from that particular piece of property in defining what is going on around that particular piece of property. To the northeast, you have Annandale Apartments that have been constructed, they're existing. Along Hacks Cross Road, more restaurants and services, those have been constructed in that particular area. Further to the southeast, the board recently approved the Oaktown Park Center, which will be mixed use with residential on the first floor, on the upper 2 floors, and commercial on the first floor. About 300 units were approved on this particular area. You also have the expansion of Legacy Park within this particular area. If you're heading to the west, you have Rolling Hills Apartments that were constructed in this particular area. So those are some of the developments that have gone on within the vicinity of this piece of property that are different from office, that are different from C2 development. For example, Oak Park Town Center is not an exclusively commercial development. It's a mixed use, it has multifamily residential. Those are some of the changes that have happened in the vicinity of this piece of property. In terms of a public need, the future land use map, which is what is shown in front of you, designates a portion of the property, the area currently zoned as office, that is designated to be medium density residential. The medium density residential designation in the comprehensive plan allows a density of up to 8 dwelling units per acre. The proposed development before you has a maximum density of 9.95 dwelling units per acre. The density provisions that you have in the comprehensive plan are what you can call ballparks. They are not very hard numbers as you have in the zoning ordinance. The board has you have some wiggle room. If, for example, the comprehensive plan says maximum density is 8 dwelling units, and an applicant proposes 20 dwelling units, that's significantly very high. So the board has some wiggle room within that 8, 9, 10, or less than in terms of making a decision. The housing units are also proposed to support the expanding industrial area that you have to the east of this particular Legacy Park development at the east, further to the east of this property. There are a number of other housing, multifamily residential developments that are in the pipeline in the city as a whole, which I thought it necessary to mention. For example, Wealth Hospitality, that is 257 units. Oak Park, that is 96. The Cascade is 350. Oak Ridge, 80. That gives you a total of about 783 units that are in the pipeline. These are the ones that have been approved and they have not yet been constructed. These were approved because one of the considerations in these is a provision for Wealth Hospitality, Oak Ridge Commons, and Oak Park, for example, is a provision in the comprehensive plan that there is need in the city of Olive Branch to diversify the housing stock. This proposed development aligns with that particular policy provision. The board in the approval of rezonings, as I did mention, to the R4 zoning district, also has to review the site plan. This is the site plan as proposed. There are a number of elements, criteria in the zoning ordinance that the board has to consider. The first relates to the conservation of natural resources on the property that is proposed for development. This includes things like trees, any living vegetation. Are there any steep slopes? On this side, you don't have steep slopes. Are there any water courses, floodplains? There is no floodplain, but there is a jurisdictional stream running from the north to the south of this property as shown. It runs in this area. And this design incorporates that jurisdictional stream into the stormwater management of the facility. This large open area that will be 4.45 acres of a lake, stocked lake, that will be provided for the management of stormwater on this particular piece of property. In terms of preservation of trees, I did mention the 50-feet wide buffer that you have to the west. So this is 50 feet wide. Along Goodman, Highway 302, that will also be 50 feet wide. And then adjoining the rest of the property, that will be commercial, that will be 25 feet wide. So those are some. And then in the development itself, just as shown here, you will have all these replanting of trees in the parking lot. With respect to the compatibility of the overall site design and the land use within the existing area and the projected future development of the area, the buildings as proposed are maximum 2-story in height. That aligns with or is compatible with the existing single-family development to the east and to the south, to the west and to the south of this particular site. All those houses are 2-story in height. So that is compatible. In terms of architecture, the applicant proposes 50% to be brick, masonry brick, and the other 50% to be board and batten. That also aligns with the residential development character in the area. General landscaping, especially the buffers are surrounding this property, would ensure that if anyone were driving around it, you don't see a huge parking lot and asphalt area looking as if it were Walmart. In terms of the provision of sufficient open space, the zoning ordinance requires that in the R4 district, there should be a minimum 10% of the site as open space. The applicant is proposing minimum 30% of this property will be open space. The provision of adequate drainage facilities, as I did mention, this is a 4.45 acres stocked retention pond is proposed on this particular site to manage the stormwater. That will be sufficient for any drainage. If this site were developed, let's say for a major retail, which is currently permitted, I don't think any retail development on this site would dedicate 4 acres of that property for the retention pond. It just won't happen. They will maximize asphalt to the full extent possible and rooftop. So these will significantly take care of some of the water. To the south of this particular property in the past, we've had some flooding issues. By providing this large detention area on this particular piece of property, it will help manage, take care of the flooding that has been taking place in this particular area. And they can throw more light on that if necessary. The fifth criteria is for the board to review the provision of safe and efficient vehicular and pedestrian transportation, both within the development and in the community at large as proposed. 3 main elements to mention. The traffic study that was conducted did not show that there would be need for signalization of the Highway 302 and Goodman Road intersection. Basically, based on the dispersion of traffic. At peak hours in the morning and in the evenings, you have about 210 cars. That's about 4 cars per minute exiting the site. The exits would be, there are 2 main locations that you could exit the site, right here beside the gas station or at the main entrance opposite Amanda Drive at this particular location. Some of the traffic may head east, may head west, and then go up north on Alexander or head east towards Goodman Road, Highway 302. Within the vicinity, in the street frontage of this property, Old Goodman Road will also be expanded to a 3-lane road with curb, gutter, and a sidewalk. So you have a middle turn lane. You will have a deceleration lane into the side, and you will have a left turn lane also added into Amanda Drive. In terms of pedestrian circulation within the property and outside of this property, as I did mention, in the street frontage of the site, there will be curb, gutter, and sidewalks. Within the property itself, shown here, let me go to this next slide. This line indicated here in dark brown, that is a trail network that is proposed within this property. That trail network totals 6,695 linear feet. That's 1.26 miles of trail of pedestrian infrastructure that they will be providing on this particular site. In terms of perspective, that is as long as the distance from this property to City Hall itself. That is a mileage of trails that they will be providing on this particular piece of property. If there was sufficient right-of-way within Old Goodman Road for the developer to build public sidewalks, it will basically be the equivalent of providing sidewalks from this side to Old Town, basically. So really, there is no savings on the part of the developer in terms of pedestrian infrastructure on this particular development. The next criteria has to do with the provision of adequate community facilities to serve the proposed development. A number of amenities are proposed. One is a resort-style pool at this location. This will be, the development is proposed in 2 phases, as I did mention. In phase 1, you would have a community center, you will have a clubhouse, a fitness center, you will have a common pool that will be provided, you will have the stocked pond, 4.45 acres, that is an amenity on the side. There will be a pickleball court with a dog park beside it that will be provided at this location. Those are the amenities with a trail. Those will be amenities provided in phase 1. In phase 2, a barbecue area with grills and fire pits will be provided with a resort-style pool, and then the rest of the trail network will be completed. So those are the amenities that are proposed in this particular development. The last criteria requires that the board examine conformance of the site development plan with the comprehensive plan and any other applicable requirements of the zoning ordinance. As I did indicate, the maximum density in the R4 zoning district is 15 dwelling units per acre. The applicant proposes 9.95, which is well below that 15 dwelling units. The comprehensive plan calls for these to be medium density, maximum density within the ballpark of 8.8 dwelling units per acre. The applicant proposes 9.95, which is not significantly high above the 8 dwelling units per acre. In the city, usually from a sound planning perspective, in most cities, the ratio of single-family residential development, especially on detached lots, to multi-family residential is usually, for it to be healthy, the multi-family shouldn't exceed 25%. It's usually within the ballpark of 75 to 25%. In the city of Olive Branch, we have about 10% of multi-family residential development. If you add all the ones that have been approved right up to this point, that is Worth Hospitality, Cascade, Oak Park Town Center, you add all those 783, it comes up to about 12%. So with this, we are still well within the 25% ballpark. The Planning Commission reviewed this application at its meeting on December 12th, and by a split vote of 3-2, recommended approval subject to a number of conditions. Condition number 2, for example, stipulated that there shall be no more than 10 dwelling units per building. The applicant or the developer is required to extend the walking trail to surround the stocked pond area, and he had no The trail as currently proposed did not include this stretch from here behind the pond. And that is what the Planning Commission was asking that it be included. That has been included in the revised drawing by the applicant. The site plan and building designs included in the application package constitute the minimum binding provisions. So the applicant cannot change this, as I did mention, increase the buildings, for example, to 3 stories. That cannot be done. At least 50% of the building elevation shall comprise of brick masonry, which may be painted white. Condition number 7 specified that the side property lines shall be fenced with a composite fence at least 6 feet in height. All street frontages shall have a minimum 6 feet high black ornamental guardrail fencing with brick columns, except, however, that a 6 feet high brick wall may be optionally provided along Highway 302. This is kind of, the Planning Commission looked at this as optional because you already have the MDOT restriction fence along Highway 302. The on-site office shall be posted with after-hours contact information. Signage shall exist on the property and all entrances into the property, clearly stating the property rules, including any tow-away policies. Considering the number of units proposed and the associated potential residential population, at least one security officer must be on the property 24/7. At the preliminary plan for the development, which if this were approved, then that would be the next application that will come before you. The applicant is required to submit for the consideration of the Planning Commission and then for the review and approval of the Board of Aldermen, satisfactorily address all issues regarding sewer capacity, any improvement on Old Goodman Road based on the traffic study, and any traffic improvements that may be required by MDOT. MDOT is currently reviewing that traffic study. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you. The applicant, Mayor, the applicant had a presentation, which we get to that email.
Okay. Is it embedded with this presentation?
Yes,
okay.
yes, sir.
We're ready for that. Is that available?
It's available. I have it on the slides.
Okay.
So
let's go ahead and get that first before the board's questions, because they may have questions about that. So we're ready for those slides.
Just in terms of decision options before the board may, upon finding that the character of the area has changed and there is a public need, the board can approve the rezoning request and the site development plan as presented, subject to various conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission. Or the board can approve the rezoning request with modifications that the board can specify. Or upon finding that the character of the area has not changed and there isn't a public need, the board can deny the rezoning request and the associated site development plan upon finding that in the last 20 years there has not been any significant change in the character of the area, and that a future land use map designates the property in terms of medium density residential for 8 dwelling units per acre, and the applicant proposes 9.95, which is about 1.95 dwelling units per acre above the 8 dwelling units. So those are the options that are before the board.
And this is the applicant's presentation?
Yes, sir.
Who will present that? Okay.
Nicholas Croonin, address 3629 College Road, South Haven, Mississippi. All right, okay, so this is forward. Yep, there. Ooh. Okay. All right, so this is a project we've been working on for a very long time. Many of the board members we have discussed with for probably 6 months now about this project. However, for us, we've been working on this project for over a year, probably a year and a half now. We kept it under wraps for a good time before we were able to get enough information to really start showing it to people. As y'all all know, this project is a project that my father, and my brother are all working on. It is a family project together. Our family has developed projects across DeSoto County for since the early '80s.
My granddad started developing, as y'all all know, and my father's been developing since the home building and developing since the 80s as well. Purpose for telling y'all that is that you may be wondering why is a family in here asking to do a multifamily development that has done single family since the 80s. And the reason is that after many market studies, many meetings of looking at things are changing. America's changing, and Olive Branch is changing drastically. So we see a need that our community needs, and we sought to try to find a solution for that need. Now, the reason why it took us a year and a half to get to this point is because we know that a standard multifamily development that this community has seen in the past is not wanted. And as this being our community, we don't want that for this community either. A standard apartment complex is not attractive. It is 3-story box with common corridors and stairs. We've all seen them and we don't want them. So we sought and spent months meeting with architects, researching things on the internet to try to find an out-of-the-box way of thinking that we could find a product that this community has not seen yet before, but other communities have had success with it. We did not want to bring y'all the new design of a wheel that we can't show that it's been successful before. We wanted to find a product that has been successful, and we could show you real-world images of that product being built. I do want to say that the differences that this product has over your standard apartment complex is density. Density is half of a normal apartment complex. We're limited to 2 stories. We're minimized stack living. Every unit has a garage, which I think is very important to make it big time different. We're architecturally like a large house and not an apartment. I think everybody will agree that they're very attractive. We worked really hard to try to find a very attractive product and not just something that is a large 3-story box. Amenities and park areas 3 times the ordinance requirement. We feel that's very important, not only for the project, but for the community to provide a destination to live at. The kind of prices this facility is going to have to fetch for rent rate, we had to provide good quality amenities. We can't just provide 5 or 10% parkland like some other multifamily developments might provide. Pushing right. One thing that we wanted to provide when we started looking at multifamily developments is provide housing options for Olive Branch's young adults. Olive Branch is changing, and American households are changing. The facts can show that, the statistics, and that's what I hope to show you with these next few slides. This chart here shows the median age of a first marriage from 1890 to the present time. You can see that a sharp growth has changed of when an adult gets married. The average male's first marriage is 31 years old now. The average female is 29 years old. What has that done? That has created a gap. That has created a dynamic of a 21, 29-year-old person who is single with a good paying job, who can afford to live where they want, but they're not settled down yet. They have not started making families. 30 years ago, people made families when they were 20 years old. They moved out of mom and dad's house and started making a family immediately. And now the dynamic of a household has changed. America is changing as well as Olive Branch. When you think about that age gap, what has changed with America is picture a 23-year-old female who graduates from college, gets a good paying job, decides she wants to live on her own. Well, where's she going to live? Is she going to live in a 3-bedroom house she has to rent and cut the grass? No, she lives by herself. She's 23 and single. Is she going to live in Annandale Apartments? She probably won't choose to do that. So what does she do? She moves to Nashville, Huntsville, Alabama, Franklin, Tennessee. She gets a job elsewhere because she doesn't find a place she wants to live here. She hasn't decided to set roots down. She hasn't decided this is where she wants her family to be. There's a huge rise in single residency needs in America. You can see here from 1969 to 2019, we've increased from 16.7% of households have one person in them and today, 28.4. Now, what's not shown in this chart, I wanted to copy and paste exact charts from the Census Bureau, but 2023, that's risen above 30. So we're still trending up. There's a lot of houses with single people in them, or housings, and that is a big change. I mean, that is drastic that all of a sudden we have people that don't need a 3-bedroom house, but they still need a good quality place to live. One thing that's very important that we're seeing across Mississippi, and I know y'all have all heard it, is we're losing our college graduates. 50% of Mississippi college graduates move out of the state within 3 years of graduating. Well, what could be the needs? We all know younger people want to be in Nashville, Fort Worth, more amenities to do. But I believe that there is one very important thing that has a role in it, and that is where you live. If a young 24-year-old woman doesn't have a place to live, she's going to go look where she does have a place to live. Or a 25-year-old guy that's single and doesn't have kids. So I think that's a very important role in why these younger people are moving out of the state, is that we don't have a good quality place to live that is out of the box type of thinking like this that has been provided across the country. One thing to think about is our young people, prices of houses have risen. When they graduate college, they don't have $30,000, $50,000 to throw down on a down payment. They've got to have a place to live before they can get to that point, before they can get and set roots. One, I think, very important question that resonates with me as a new father in the past 3 to 5 years is, where will our kids have a place to live in their hometown? Will they move away? I know that my wife's going to make me move if my kids move away, but I hope that doesn't ever happen. One very important thing when researching statistics on single family and multifamily that I never realized was the impacts of schools. Multifamily will minimize school impacts. And you say, how is that possible? Well, multifamily attracts a different person. It attracts a young professional without kids. It attracts younger families that maybe only have one kid. So it's to compare this to an equivalent single-family development. Vanderberg Flats, based on the number of children per 100 households, this development would have 138 students. Now that is 0 to 17 years old, or K through 12. Keep in mind, not college graduates or college kids. A similar single-family development on this property that would be 320 units, 8 units to the acre, would produce 210 students. So a multifamily development is less impact on your schools. One very important, big talking point on this project that has been talked about from the very beginning is traffic. Multifamily will minimize traffic impacts. And how will that happen is because the current zoning of this project is commercial, or this property is commercial and office. Some things that Asong already mentioned in his report that would be allowed in C2: grocery stores, offices, hotel, car dealership, auto repair, tire sales, auto parts, indoor shooting gallery, restaurants, car wash. Now for size comparison, we're not talking about exchanging 410 multifamily units for one grocery store or one car dealership. This is 50 acres. Some comparisons around Olive Branch, the Lowe's in Olive Branch is only 15 acres. The Kroger is 7 acres. The Hyundai dealership is 5 acres. McDonald's is 1 acre. Popeyes is 1 acre. So the purpose is to tell you that this 50 acres can handle a lot. So what I showed you on this chart is multifamily low-rise units with 410 units during peak hour traffic would generate 229 cars. Now what's very interesting is that if this property was a single family development with 320 units, it would produce 316 cars peak hour. So multifamily is less than single family. Now, the rest of the chart, what you see there, I randomly picked a few uses that could occupy this 50 acres. I didn't cherry pick all the highest traffic generators. I picked one high traffic generator and the rest average. I picked a tire store, home improvement store, and then a 25-acre office park, which would fill the office portion of this property, and a grocery store. Now, that doesn't all equal 50 acres, but it's pretty close. That generates 1,244 cars in peak hour. That is not 1,244 a day, that's 1,244 in peak hour, which is allowed today in the current zoning. I think that speaks volumes for why this is a good spot for it and why this is a better zoning than the current zoning today. The rest of these pictures, I'm gonna scroll through them. We visited a facility that is very, very similar to this in Huntsville, Alabama. It was built in 2019 and 2020. They're currently working on their phase 2 of their development. And when I mentioned that we looked to find a product that we could show you real world pictures, this is it. These buildings are an identical copy of our buildings. The only difference is the brick is painted black. The layout's the same, the chimney's the same, everything's the same. So this is real world pictures of Huntsville, Alabama. I'll just scroll through some for y'all. Here's a picture showing the garages from the back. Here's a showing the gym, a community area in the clubhouse, and the bottom left is a typical kitchen. Now that is in one of the 1-bedroom units, so that is one of the smaller kitchens. But finishes of what you see there are identical to what we intend to use. Some other things that were mentioned about this project is home values. This is going to drive the cost of my house down, all these things. The value of my house is going to plummet because of multifamilies going next door to me. Well, multifamily just like this has been built all across the country by Humphrey and Partners, our architect that we're working with. And we picked 3 markets that were similar, that they have built identical big house developments in, which are Linder, Texas, Franklin, Tennessee, and Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We pulled sales data from the last 7 years to compare the before and after these projects were built. All these projects were built in 2019 to 2020. All 3 cities saw increases of 11.59% a year on average. So all of them saw increases in home value, the similarity to us or anywhere else. It had no effect on home values. One other thing that I think is very important to think of why this community needs a project like this is single-family rental. I know every one of y'all have heard about single-family rental being a problem, and our older neighborhoods turning into single-family rental. According to our market study, 1 mile radius from this property, 36% of the homes are rental. If we don't provide a place for that rental market to go, it's only going to get worse if we don't provide a quality place for it to go. So just to put that in perspective, how that problem's only going to get worse as years go on. In the last 3 years, DeSoto County has built on average 1,593 houses a year. The older parts of DeSoto County are going to take the burden of that 30% rental. So if you put 30% rental, that means that 1,593 houses are built a year. That means that 400 houses in DeSoto County will become rental because we're sticking with the 30%. So this will help alleviate that by providing those places a quality place to go. One other thing I do want to mention is that we understand the petition was passed around for against this rezoning. We did pass around a petition as well for this rezoning, and a total petition against was 39 signatures. The total petition for was 97. Within 1 mile of the property, we had 39 signatures. Within 1 mile of the property, they had 34 signatures. I think that's very important to keep that there are 2 sides of this, and there are many citizens that are in favor of this project and see the quality need that it needs. Be glad to answer any questions y'all may have.
Board, any questions for the applicant or staff, either one?
I do have a question for the staff. One of the concerns I've seen, all of us have gotten emails, phone calls, and all this stuff that's about both sides of this. One of the items that came up was after the water problem we had earlier in the year, would this development cause any strain on our water system or our gas system? I don't know whether y'all are using gas in this or not, but
It would be all electric.
all electric, okay, what, just the water system, will that have any effect on our water system at all,
Well-
by adding these units?
I can address that somewhat. I know that during the last snowstorm that we had, where we had some low water pressures, we had a pump down, and there were a few other issues, but one of them was a major pump that we had on Polk Lane that was I guess causing a lot of the decreases in water pressures. It was a timing thing. It was something that was supposed to be replaced the week before, and there was a delay in it, but they ended up turning it around in a pretty fast pace. So I think that may be the reason that we saw some of them out there. But I will mention this, as far as water concerns, it is a very important thing for Olive Branch. We're doing a study right now, trying to possibly put a new water tower out in the eastern area. We're under design right now for a plant to be put in at the Craft Road water tower. So we're doing a number of things that's going to secure and promote and make sure that we've got plenty of water out there in the eastern part of Olive Branch.
What about the sewer system? Will it have capacity for this?
The sewer system is for the most part, it travels down Goodman Road. It goes through a neighborhood across Alexander and ties into a much larger interceptor sewer. Nick and I have gone back and forth with issues on that. The only area that I still have questions remaining is one small segment along Old Goodman Road. And Nick and I actually talked about that this week. And so we're going to look and make sure that if we do need any kind of an extension for capacity's sake, they're willing to do whatever's needed for it. So I think we're going to get there on that concern as well.
The other question I had, you said that MDOT was looking at, what is MDOT looking at as far as streets and roadways? What part are they looking at?
They're just reviewing the traffic study for the intersection at Highway 302 and Old Goodman. So
That's the only thing they're looking at, is that intersection? Okay.
That's correct. And I will add on the sewer system, we've done extensive research on that. We had meters installed for 30 days out there to monitor actual flow. So we've been working on that for 3 months now to try to get good data for Andy to help make his decision. And so it's been ongoing.
If it's approved, the road would be widened and the sidewalks all would be installed before any kind of occupancy, right?
That's correct. The road widening is part of phase one. Now sidewalks with the portion of it might be spotty with some of the commercial being technically a second phase, but road widening would be all in phase one.
Does it have a deceleration lane?
It does. Left turn and deceleration lane into the main entrance only.
Okay.
Well, the second one, the gas station is installing the deceleration lane already.
Okay, thank you.
Nick, I have a question, please, sir. On your trips per peak hour per day, you mentioned 210 vehicles.
Mhm.
As an insurance professional, the vast majority of our clients, everybody has a car. Mom, dad, kids, and everything. So if you have 2 people per unit, that's 800 cars. And I know not all units are going to be married to have 2 people, but I guess my question is, where did you get those numbers, and do you think, is there a margin of error? Because I see 650 trips per peak hour, just in my personal observation.
So those numbers are based off the ITE. So all traffic studies are based off those numbers, those trips. And they have studies that they do for certain size developments that you use, and you have charts and all kinds of stuff that'll bore you. But that's where all that came from. It's the same thing that we use for an MDOT traffic study. I think the one thing that that helps connect the dots of why multifamily would be much less is well, we're attracting much less kids. There's more kids. There's more trips to the ball field. There's more trips to the school. There's more trips back and forth home for those families that have 3, 4 kids. When you're not going to move into here if you have 4 kids because you only have, a 3-bedroom apartment, where you will into a house. So that's where the data comes from,
Okay.
and that is not data I came up with. I got it from those charts.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Nick, in your traffic study, I know they've talked about we're going out eastward from Old Goodman to 302 and turning right. And you mentioned if they wanted to go back west, they'd go down Old Goodman to Alexander, maybe cut across that way. Did y'all's study include anything about anybody going further further west on Old Goodman, where they need to go to the high school area, maybe cut down Magnolia, or are they gonna go all the way into town to go maybe to the intermediate school or the middle school, any of that? Did y'all have any studies on what that would do to the traffic on that part of Old Goodman?
We did not. We did not look further west. Anytime you're doing a traffic study, you kind of have to pick your boundaries and stick to them. So no, we did not. And really, when you start getting further away from a project site like that, you start getting so many variations and routes they can take that it's a guess at that point anyway.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could, let me mention, Nick is correct. There was a support petition submitted. It is in your board packets, as well as the radius diagram that was provided. The law only provides a mechanism for changing the voting standard for petitions in opposition, but certainly the board is free to consider the petition and support and determine what relevance that you place on that. But did want to mention to you that Mr. Cronin was correct. There was a support petition provided, and that is in your board packets.
So, Mr. Dyer, so it does not change the supermajority status?
It does not. The law only recognizes a change in voting standard for petitions in opposition.
Thank you. Board, any additional questions of staff or the applicant before public comments are received?
Nick, can you expand a little bit on the study that you did for the need for more housing, whoever did that for you? And
Yes. So we had BBG Real Estate perform a market study. Came back that there were 24,000 potential units for the next 3 years for this area.
is that for just Olive Branch, or is that for DeSoto County?
So the way the market studies work is they pick what is called a CoStar boundary. CoStar, I think, is a company that determines these market boundaries, and so that market is actually all of Olive Branch, majority of South Haven, and actually part of Horn Lake. It reaches just over to 55. So that area is the 24,000.
Okay.
So that they put that we actually only have to capture 1.2% of the market to make it viable. So it's the market, the need is gigantic. I mean, just.
Nick, I do have one other comment I'd like to make, because I think it's fair for discussion tonight however the vote goes. As you probably know, we get lots of emails and phone calls about various things, i.e. property value is going to go up, down, this, that. Crime is obviously one of those. That has not been discussed tonight, and I like data because I don't think any development or project is going to say it's going to increase or decrease crime or any other statistic. But I would like to share this with you from our own crime stats in the city of Olive Branch, and this by no means says that apartments are a problem any more than houses, or apartment dwellers are a problem any more than residential dwellers. But I would like to note that in our 9 apartments that we have in town, the 3 major ones, Annandale, the Vineyards, and Plantation Apartments, do account for 75% of our crime in the apartment world, and 67% of the calls, service calls that our police and fire get. Now, when you compare that to residents all over, when you mix it in with housing as well, 2 of those apartments in Ward 1 and 2, now this is not the voting wards, this is police precincts, but 2 of those apartments are located in Ward 1 and 2 for the police precinct, and that represents 42% of the crime and service calls. If this project were approved, it would put another 400, dwelling units in that Ward 1 area, which comprises that Ward 1 or 2. So good, bad, or indifferent is statistical, factual data, and I just wanted to, you didn't mention crime in your studies, and I guess I'd like your take on that.
Well, the reason why I did mention crime is because we reached out to try to get a lot of information on crime related to similar projects in other cities, and we hit dead-end roads of, it's hard to call up a Huntsville Police Department and say, send me over your data.
When you're
So
from Olive Branch.
we could, the only thing we could do was call management companies that are managing similar ones, and the one we visited in Huntsville, we says, can you pull any police reports or any incident reports your management company has filed? And in the last, I believe she said 2 years, they've had the only incident reports that they had were related to people parking in the wrong spot. There were 2 police reports where cars abutting their property or in the front parking lot that were not part of the complex, that complex was gated as well, were broken into. And so, but no police reports related to citizens or anything inside the gated community. And I think that's one thing that makes this very different is that this is a gated community. I understand that some of our other apartments might have gates that say that they're supposed to close and they never close. Well, the reason why they never close is because it wasn't designed to begin with to be a gated community. The gates weren't located to where public can make it to the office and leave. This was designed from the get-go to be a gated community. I think that's very important. Another very important thing is that the price point. We're talking $1,800 for a 1-bedroom, and we're talking $2,500 a month for a 3-bedroom. That's a different price point than $800 or $900 a month. And I don't know Annandale's exact prices, but I believe Annandale's $800 or $900 a month. So that's a way different price point, way different product altogether.
Any data from Fort Worth or other areas that you asked about? I think you said that was Huntsville.
The problem was that everybody was either couldn't get me data that they were confident enough to release, or they weren't. That I got very uneasiness from everybody on releasing information on what it was, and so I struggled to get good data on that, but I did try.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Additional questions? Thank you, Mr. Cronin.
Yep. Thank y'all.
At this time, we will receive public comments for residents or attendees who are in support of this project. You're a proponent of it. You support this project. Please come forward and give your name and address to give those comments if you're in support of this project.
Hello, my name's Sean Green. I live at 3385 Bright Road, Hernando, Mississippi. I am a lifelong Olive Branchian. My business is in Olive Branch. I have rental houses in Olive Branch. When I first come in here today, I look over and I see these boards and I see the product that the developer's trying to put out. And first thing that hit my mind is it's very obvious that this is a local developer. The reason being is he didn't cut any corners on nothing. As a builder, I've been building houses for 25 years. I'm sitting over there listening to everything, and I can't think of anything that they could add to this project that's not already in there. The design of it is very expensive. It's not a cheap product like you see in a lot of cases and a lot of stuff that gets brought before y'all. To me, it was very respectful for what they're proposing and the look of everything. All the amenities they've added, doing it gated, trying to make it secure for everybody is a big plus, and a big plus for the city of Olive Branch. There's going to be a lot of people come over here tonight, and they're going to talk about having rentals around the area probably. Well, the problem with that is the rentals are here. They're not right here right now as far as this particular project, hopefully it'll be coming, but the rentals are in every neighborhood. And I've got rental properties all over Olive Branch, and I can put one on Facebook, and in 24 hours, I can have it rented out, and I can have up to 5 calls of people wanting it. So the case about people seeing rentals and something like this, it's contained into one area. It's an upscale rental property. I'm sure there'll be tons of cameras on it for help for security. I would recommend having the city police department logged into the cameras so they can also check it and watch it if they wanted to. But having it gated is going to be a big plus. But the rental business is already in Olive Branch, and if people don't believe that, they're misunderstanding, because, like I said, I can put one rental house on Facebook and have 4, 5, 6 phone calls and have it rented within 24 hours. So it's a big plus to have something all together, something nice, something upscale, something with walking trails, something with gates on it. Something that looks like this. Some of the stuff that I see, when you put chimneys on a building, it costs more money. When you put black windows on a building, it costs a lot more money. You're looking at a big increase in price. When you put the roof pitch on this, it costs a lot more money. So this developer's at least taking the time to try to make something that fits into this area for the community, and make it upscale and make it something, you know, pleasing to the eye when you drive by. And I think it's something that fits in with the city of Olive Branch, and I hope that y'all consider it and pass it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on behalf of this application? You're in support of this application?
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Jones. I live at 6320 Timber Oaks Drive. I'm a lifelong resident of Olive Branch, and brokerage and development. Also, I have no interest in this project personally, but we've seen a lot of proposals over the years as far as apartment complexes. I can attest. I serve on the state association housing Mississippi Home Corporation. And we offer affordable options for home ownership. Affordable home ownerships, once upon a time, was looked down as government subsidized low-income homes. Apartments were one time considered something that were strictly low-income type facilities. We've come a long way since then. The demographically have definitely changed, but this type of facility, with the cost to live in a place like this, home ownership is getting to be out of reach because of the cost to build a home. It's just hard for a couple or an individual to afford a home under current pricing. It really fills the void, and for a complex like this with the amenities that it have, it would not do anything but enhance the options that people have that are moving to Olive Branch. Recently, there's been some programs announced about industries that are moving to North Mississippi throughout the state, and I think the primary reason for that, according to the rationale, was that our labor supply, we had an excellent labor supply, and that's going to create more opportunity. It's going to bring more people in that are going to need places, quality places to live. The amenities offered here, the type of rent that's going to be necessary it'll really raise the bar for this type of facility. I don't know of any other in our part of the state that would compare with this. I do know that when people are looking for a home, they don't have many options, and they end up, as Sean said, I think, going to neighborhoods where people have moved out, and then they end up renting them. After they've been lived in once or twice, they turn into rental properties. A lot of HOAs are now asking that we put restrictions to limit the ability to
30 more seconds. 30 more seconds.
To limit the ability for people to rent their homes. This could help in that area take some of the pressure off of existing homes and the rentals pressure that goes along with those. So I personally think that based on the amenities and the location, that there's a need for it and would really be an asset to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak on behalf of this application? You're in favor of this application? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this application? You'd like to speak against this application, come forward.
Hi there, I'm Ruth Wilburn, and I own the 30 acres that are adjacent to this proposed development. And I, as well as most of the people in this room, are asking that you deny the requested zoning variation to R4 multi-residential for a current zoning of office in C3. I moved to Olive Branch in '79, where I was employed as a veterinarian on that property. I purchased the property in 1980. There was 2,000 people in Olive Branch. And since that time, I've watched Olive Branch grow into a desirable place to live with a small town atmosphere by having regulated growth. Putting more apartments in this area is not conducive to this kind of growth that we want. Residents in rental property have no so-called skin in the game. They're less likely to invest and keep up properties, and therefore property values often decrease. This has already happened, as has been mentioned, in Olive Branch with large companies buying up homes for rental property. What was not said in the earlier presentation is Olive Branch has 5 major apartment complexes which are located east of Goodman Road, and 4 of them are located within 1.3 miles of Vanderberg Flats. The Vineyard, Goodman Road Manor, Rolling Hills are all with 1.1 miles of the proposed Vanderberg Flats, with a total of 960 units. Annandale has 400 units, and they're 1.3 miles directly north of this property. Plantation is 3.5 miles north and slightly west with 336 units. These apartments might start out high-end, and we've seen it happen in Memphis, but even gated complexes fall prey to crime and drugs. Even with background checks, which was suggested, it's easy enough to skirt the rules and regulations. The Vanderberg property is not the place to put these apartments. We don't need Goodman Road to become apartment row, so to speak. They need to be located elsewhere in the city, and it sounds like from the presentation earlier that y'all already have approved about 800 other units. The traffic is one of the biggest things. I don't know how MDOT and Goodman Road are going to come to a meeting of the minds, but that is going to be a real big mess. The schools are a problem, putting a big strain on that. Also, drainage is a problem, which I'm in negotiations with the city over that, from water that comes from the Vanderberg property is part of the problem. There's water that comes from the north side of the 302.
30 seconds, please. 30 seconds.
Sir?
30 seconds
Okay.
remaining.
So that's an issue. And then the problem with the water. It sounds like we need to address our infrastructure problems before we allow this. And I hope that you will deny that request. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilburn. Anyone else to speak on behalf of, against this application? You're in opposition to this application. Come forward.
Thanks for hearing me out. My name's Carl Andrews, Buddy Andrews. I've been a resident of Olive Branch for 35 years. I live at 9479 Old Goodman Road. And I'm probably going to repeat some things Dr. Ruth said. If I did, I apologize, but I've got my little schedule written out here, and it'll be less than 3 minutes. For full disclosure, though, someone else may have did it too, but I did collect signatures and objections to this project and turned them in to the city.
They're present. They're here.
Developer, with all due respect, wanted, he got more signatures, 2 or 3 more than me. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, everybody I knocked on the door and spoke to, except for one person, signed the petition that they didn't want them. Now, I quit after I thought I had enough signatures. because I didn't like banging on all these doors at afternoon. I did it one morning and one afternoon. One person, and all the reason they said they didn't want to do it is because they wanted to talk to their husband first. I didn't go back. There are numerous reasons the decision to okay this project would not be in the best interest of our community. The short stretch of Goodman Road from Highway 178 to 302 is approximately 2 miles. Already has 3 different apartment complexes. The approval to add the 4th would be a terrible decision for this small stretch of roadway. Currently, there are several infrastructure issues on this stretch of Old Goodman Road, including major traffic congestions during certain times of the day. Old Goodman cannot accommodate the traffic now, much less adding the additional traffic these apartments would generate. I would disagree with any traffic study saying otherwise. The town of Collierville just voted against a new Chick-fil-A because the citizens knew the benefits were outweighed by the traffic and disruption to the area. So my point is, all growth is not necessarily good growth. Sidewalks on Old Goodman Road are sporadic at best to non-existent in most areas. Pedestrians walking from current neighborhoods to and from Old Town Olive Branch are forced to walk in someone's yard or walk down the middle of the street roadway, many times occurring after dark, creating a very dangerous situation for the pedestrian and those attempting to drive down the road. Pedestrians often discard litter as they walk, contributing to the litter issue in our city. Traffic lanes are so close to the curb presently that vehicles continuously hit mailboxes. You can drive down Old Goodman Road now and see dents all over the place, mailboxes laying over. I personally, in the last year, probably fixed mine 3 times. I am a retired law enforcement officer from the Sheriff's Office in Shelby County. From my firsthand experience, most apartment complexes start off nice, but after a few years they become neglected and not properly maintained. If you are familiar with the area of Hickory Hill, Memphis, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't believe the board members in Olive Branch or the mayor or myself want to turn Olive Branch into Hickory Hill. I mean, every one of those apartments turned crime-ridden, numerous police calls constantly. It is my opinion, when considering this, the Board of Aldermen should think about this long-term as to what the decision would be for our city 5 or 10 years from now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Anyone else?
I'm Evelyn Carrico, 10585 Catalpa Street in the Branch. I got Catalpa. I have to spell it every time, not Pine Street or Oak Street. Okay, I have 2 things. One, I need clarification because I got totally lost in some of this, proposals, that the gas station and the Branch, our road, we have one road out to Goodman Road, and the apartment complex, we're going to be within a 1/4 mile of Hacks Cross. And I need clarification again where those exits and things are so that we're not, I need to know if how close we are in, I don't know, colliding into each other. I already see people now going on that 3rd lane on Old Goodman Road. They go through around that to go around people because we have older people. That's an older section of Olive Branch. So I didn't quite get how they're going to space in a 1/4 mile 3 busy areas. And the other thing, this is more of a statement. He's talking about home values and safety, and he mentioned Franklin, Tennessee. They have $1 million homes. So if they lose a little bit, they may only go down to 800,000. We can't, that's no comparison to us. They're a bedroom community of Nashville. We are a bedroom community of Memphis. And unless they get Memphis straightened out, we'll never be straightened out. Because we are a part of that community too. So that's it, but I would like to hear about what they want to say about the exits.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Pat Young Evans. I'm 80 years old. I've lived on Goodman Road my entire life. I've paid taxes. I've voted every time that we've had a vote in Olive Branch. And I want to say, first of all, I may sound back and forth. I will say the apartments look great. If Kim Croonan builds them, they're gonna be great. But I don't want it on Goodman Road because we can't take it. We don't have sidewalks. We have a 2-lane street. I've lived there my whole life. People in Rolling Hills, most of them don't have cars. They walk down in the middle of the road to get to Olive Branch or to the little store there by Maury Drive to buy something. And I think that Mike Bailey and Croonan's thought down the road on New Goodman was an excellent idea. Right down there by the factories. It's already zoned. It's right across from all the commercial stuff. And that's an excellent place. But we don't have the structure, the room, no lights, absolutely no lights. And whenever a train happens to hit, which is often down our road, you know you're at the city hall. It backs all the way up into the middle of Olive Branch. It backs all the way up to Milton Nichols. And so that already messes up our little 2-mile Goodman Road. And then I cut us off, and now we have to make that little curve to go out and wait to get out on New Goodman and wait to come back to get off. Safety-wise, no traffic stops. Okay, I guess I've done enough for tonight.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Next, sir.
I'm Harvey Lee Haraway. I'm from 9901 East Goodman Road, and most of y'all up there know I've lived around here all my life. Most of y'all have known me most of my life. I'm not going to reiterate everything they said, but as one who lives down in there, traffic is bad. Pedestrian traffic is bad. Litter is bad. All this stuff they're saying. I'm in support of the folks that are against 410 apartment buildings or units going in. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haraway. Next.
How y'all doing tonight?
Doing
Hello,
good.
Alderman. Ma'am, I'm sorry. You know my wife, Vicki Garrison. My name is Gregory Garrison. I live at 10319 Amanda Drive. So this development is literally, it is eyesight of me. And I've lived down here about 28 years now. I'm not one of those school, but I've been down here a while. So my kids graduated from Olive Branch, both of them. I got a daughter here raising a family. My son's in Indy, though. All right. One of the things is the schools down here. I believe that the apartments will bring kids, which, like I said, I got 2 grandkids. Now I'm not against kids, but the zoning of Olive Branch has been cut down so horrible that these other schools are overcrowded from what I've been told now. I mean, I can't say, yeah, I know for a fact, but like South Hay and Lewisburg and all over in there. So I think this would increase that, make it harder. Then, like you're talking about on Old Goodman, the narrowness. To me, this would be on the city, not him, would be the sidewalks. And I know that the residents are responsible for the sidewalk, but I drive down Old Goodman every day, and people are not just, they're in the middle of the street, and me and my wife always says, they're asking to get hit. But, I think the city, you're talking about walking trails at the apartment. You ain't got a walking trail to get downtown or get into town. I mean, so to me, that's not that important. To me, we need to have sidewalks because of these other apartments for these folks, because most of them are, have to walk to the store and all that. And I see it every day. They ain't got cars, and this is the nearest, and they come across that railroad track and that little corner right there at Old Goodman. So I think the city needs to invest, I guess would be a better term. Oh, God, my time's up. And put sidewalks in. That'd be one big thing. And they can't run. Let me make sure I'm not smart. I'm stupid. But they can't put an exit onto 302, can they?
No, sir.
That's what I thought.
State's probably not going to let them do that.
Yeah, the state controls that. So that means they're going to have to come out on Old Goodman. So that's going to definitely increase that. And then, like I was thinking, I know he said something about the water, and which I think, because we had that water issue during the ice storm, which I hope the city is addressing that for future. And the city, why I'm saying this, because we got a lot of leaks, but that's a whole nother subject around. I've had one by me for 2 years, but nobody drives around, I'm guessing, to see them.
30 seconds, yes, sir.
Okay. And that's about all I got to say. I just,
Thank you.
say that
Thank you.
there's a few things that needs to be
I'll-
addressed before.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just briefly, editorial comment on 2 items. That's fine. I do want you to know, when the water pump went out, and I see my public works director back there, we were standing at the site about 8 p.m. the night the water pump was put on. It pumped 1 million gallons to help fill 10 water towers from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was a fluke that the water pump went out like it did. We don't have a water pressure shortage. We've got 10 tanks, 7 plants, and Mr. Andre, how many pumps? 9 pumps. We've got, and the Board of Aldermen that's sitting up here approved in October a $4.2 million additional water plant that will be going in this city. So we literally had conversations 3 weeks before the severe weather hit about whether we should lower the water pressure because of some of the leaks, because high water pressure, it puts pressure on water pipes. So we do not have a water pressure problem. We had a problem of everybody doing what I did, faucets all open. Some people fill bathtubs, and 10 water towers, it goes down, back up, goes down, and back up. So I do want you to know that. And the second item, the first 6 months I was in this job, I did go to Old Goodman. I said, I know you need sidewalks here. Yeah, I need sidewalks here. But guess what? About 2 out of 5 said, you're not putting them on my side of the street. I'm not giving up any more of my yard and being any closer to Goodman. So I tried to broker your sidewalks, and I was told, no, you have to take me to court. I'm not giving land to put a sidewalk in front of my house. So I just want you to know that we did attempt to do some sidewalks there, and some property owners said, no way, no how. So just want you to know that. Anybody else want to speak in opposition of this particular proposal?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bonnie Jones. I reside at 7246 Crepe Myrtle Drive. I've been in so many meetings with the residents between Alexander Crossing and Edgewater. In reference to the Vander Flats, putting that unit there would be a nightmare as far as logistics is concerned with traffic. Coming from Helen of Troy, right there at Polk Lane, and getting to Hacks Cross, once the light turns green and you're turning left onto Old Goodman Road, it's not even peak right now. The traffic in the left lane is right now backed up, and it's not peak time. So if you're putting these units there with the current flow of traffic, there's going to be a lot of accidents. It's going to back up onto Hacks Cross, because we are literally sitting in the left lane right now to turn left on Old Goodman Road, coming home from work from Helen of Troy, get to the traffic light at Hacks Cross, wait for that light to change. Everyone that's turning into the Alexander Crossing, Magnolia, everyone living on the left side, turning left right there, we are literally sitting. So during peak time, you can't even imagine how many accidents take place right there. So putting that unit right there would definitely be detrimental. I'm interested to know if the studies that were conducted were real-time studies. I've also heard the studies that were conducted about the crime aspect of these units. I heard him mention Huntsville. I heard him mention another town. Is in a real-life situation, those towns this close to a town like Memphis. We're talking about a different beast. We're talking about, as homeowners right now, we have been inundated with rental properties. In those rental properties, we have a minimum of 4 people in those homes. Progress Residential has literally taken over Alexander Crossing, not yet Edgewater, but the traffic is flowing from Alexander Crossing into Edgewater along with the crime. We have had attempted burglaries and a few burglaries. We have car thefts, car burglaries. As those rentals increase, every time a home goes up for sale, someone buys it, and it's not a regular homeowner. In closing, I just wanted to say, if some real-life studies can be conducted in our area, maybe we would be all on board with the project for the Vander Flats. But right now, it would literally be catastrophic for the residents. I'm speaking for Alexander Crossing and Edgewater. Thank you.
Thank you. Please refrain from clapping. It was okay with the young lady that was 80, but if you're under 80, we just can't clap for you, okay? If you're over 80, we will. Any more opposition, come forward. One side can outclap the other, I have no doubt, if we open it up. So that's the reason I'm doing that. Ma'am?
Hi, good evening. My name is Jamie Obar, and I live at 9741 Taylor Drive, but I grew up at in the old Haraway house on Old Goodman Road. So I am Buddy and Lana's daughter, and I'm going to continue and say a few things that my dad didn't have time to say. So I want to say that a significant part of the appeal of Olive Branch is our old town and the surrounding area. And most of the towns and cities in our area that have little small towns, like Germantown, Collierville, Hernando, they embrace and regulate their historic areas. And even though our community has worked really hard and has done a great job to revitalize our old town, and we've had some great success, the area doesn't end with the few blocks between Old 78 and 305. Even though these apartments are not right in the center of Old Town, the traffic and other issues will compromise what our city government has worked really hard to rebuild. And I assure you that adding apartments to this area will only harm the charm, safety, and appeal of our old town. Also, we had a really pretty presentation that Mr. Croonan put up there with a lot of nice graphs, but I do feel like a lot of that was cherry-picked, and as these others said, Murfreesboro and Franklin, that is not an apples-to-apples comparison. You also can't just do traffic studies east, because west is what's going towards our old town, and that's where all the traffic congestion is going to happen, and it's already there today. So thank you for listening, and I hope you guys don't approve this.
Thank you. And I know we're missing some, but please maybe at the very end get the blue cards and give the clerk your name and address. We just have to capture it for the minutes. We can't always get it verbally. Sir, come forward.
James Roberts, 7243 Alexander Road. I don't have big feelings for or against this specific project, just development of that area in general. I have 2 minor concerns. One would be if people are going to go west on 302 out of there, they're not going to sit there at the stop sign instead of a stop light on 302. They're going to come west and go down my road, Alexander Road. And we already have a lot of traffic through there with people going 50, 60 miles an hour. And I just think any development is just going to increase that if they don't put a traffic light at 302. The other thing is we already have developed, the pond behind my house, the retention pond, takes a lot of water from the east of us. And I don't know if it reaches this far, this development, but we're already having, that pond needs to be drenched. It fills up when we get a lot of rain. I've had water come all the way up into my yard. So I think we do have a water issue there for any development that should probably be looked at again. And that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else has information that has not been covered, please come forward.
I'm Judy Oken at 6683 Persimmon Cove. My concern is with our neighbors even. Concern is us getting out of our neighborhood. How are we going to do it? We got a service station already, and we try to get out and we wait. And you've got both ways, we've got traffic going. And if this happens, the gas station already there, we're going to have traffic coming on the Goodman Road right in front of our street to get into the branch. And then add all of this traffic, and like they said, with the train stopping us, if we go the other way, we go down to Alexander, the traffic is going to be a nightmare. And the crime is always. I work in property management. I know what it's like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in opposition? Please refrain from clapping. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Anisha Kilbrew, 7231 Edgewater Drive. I just wanted to say, we've talked about the traffic, but one thing that we didn't talk about was, although we talked about the sidewalks, that's where all the school buses come. Typically in the morning, there are anywhere between 30 and 60 kids out there just waiting for the school bus, and it's a real big safety hazard. Also, it's good that we think that apartments are going to bring nice, wholesome college graduates, but that's probably not the reality 100%. Maybe we're looking at 410 people that you just have, their possibilities are endless. Traffic will be horrible. You see people, children walking up and down the street. There's basically a little corner store in the middle of Old Goodman Road where children go back and forth walking across the street. There's no traffic, stop signs or anything right there. Those are between Alexander and Edgewater, those are, family homes and things like that. And we just haven't talked about the children that live around there that do their walking to school, walking before and after school, going back and forth to the store, because I see it all the time. I see kids dotting across the street. There aren't always adults around to monitor them. They're not my kids, but they're someone's. And it's just something that we have to think about. We have to think about the crime. Sometimes, unfortunately, children, they create crimes. Young people, they bring crimes. We talked about the apartments being close to Memphis. People migrate from Memphis. They come to Olive Branch, DeSoto County, period, to get away from the crime. But they don't think about that their family members are still coming from Memphis, and they bring the crime with them. It's not necessarily the people who are moving here, but sometimes it's the people that they're visitors or what have you. That's pretty much it from me.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Matt Hicks. I live at 10128 Phillips Drive. My concern that I genuinely have not heard any address of, nothing personal, sir, but you absolutely can call a police department, ask for crime information on a place, and it's given to you. It's under the Freedom of Information Act. We keep crime statistics all over this country. We keep them here. Saying we can't get crime information for a property similar to this is insane. Why do we not have accurate figures on what crime is looking like in these neighborhoods 1 year, 5 year, 10 years down the road from their construction? Why are we not able to get information about the genuine impact of this on crime statistics? They're there. We keep them. That's all I got.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, everyone.
I'm Jamie. It's my daughter Elizabeth.
Hello, Elizabeth.
House. Our house is directly adjacent from the corner where Vanderberg flats are going to be located, possibly. I've worked in construction for 15 years, and they are beautiful. I want to give credit where credit's due. I feel like a lot of time has been put into the planning, and just want to get to the point. I look in that area, you know, I spend a lot of time in my backyard looking over there, and it's a huge flood area. I mean, when the rain comes, it pours, and it's like a giant lake back in that particular area. I've seen a lot of pictures of the layout and everything, but I haven't seen where the dirt would have to be built up, how high the elevation would need to be put in for that particular area. That is a huge area, and it would take a lot to build that up. A few other concerns I have, excuse me, I've got a terrible congestion. There are terrible sinkholes back on Old Goodman, on the south side of Old Goodman. There's a lot of kids that walk through that area behind my house. I see it. It's very dangerous for them having a child. Like I said, you know, those are a few concerns that I have. Kind of torn in between, excuse me, seeing it and be there and not be there. You know, I kind of want to be in the middle, but I'm opposed to it. I don't want to see them. I'm gonna miss my deer. You know, I see the deer in that area every afternoon, and we love our little town. We're attracted to this area. 12 years ago, moved here from South Haven, and I love the small town feel. I know, you know, communities are going to grow, but at some point, when do you know, put a stop on that? You know, so. That's my opinion on the matter. And I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you. Miss Elizabeth, do you have anything you want to share with us?
Miss you, dear.
We would like to hear from you.
I agree with my dad. I miss all like the animals out there when we like look at our view and everything. Just seeing apartments over there, looking at it, it's just, you know, it's a little sad. We're gonna miss our beautiful view that we see every time we come home from school, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I think she did better than I did.
We'll clap for her. Thank you, Miss Elizabeth.
Thank y'all.
Anyone else looking for things that have not been said, that the board hasn't heard, that needs to be considered?
Hey, I'm Christy Dye. I live at 6800 Branch Road. Thank you, Mr. Adams, for answering my email about the gas station. The drainage in our neighborhood, I know for a fact, is collapsed under our street because I have a manhole that's right in front of my driveway, and the water washes away my driveway. So the city has actually had to come and redo my driveway so I wouldn't have a sinkhole in my driveway. I mean, you could literally stick your arm underneath my driveway because with the manhole, and this is coming from the city. This is a guy that I talked to with the city. Since the manhole is collapsed, it makes all that water wash back underneath my driveway, therefore washing all the dirt out from under my driveway and in my yard. So if you have this, like the band just said, it's kind of on an incline. Where do you think all that water's going to go? And I have a 25-year-old son at home that lives with me because he is saving for a home because he doesn't want to pay $1,800 to $2,400 for an apartment. So if you think that you're going to get single families in these, then think again. You're probably going to get, I'd say, 5 frat boys whose parents are going to end up paying for it. So you're not going to have 2 cars, you're going to have 5 cars. We've already got the construction people who are building this gas station parking on our street. We have to go around these people because they're parking on our street. So when you have the overflow of these people not having a place to park, we have that dead-end street. There's people parked there all the time. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on in the lot behind our property. So not only am I going to have to look in front and be afraid, now, I mean, I already have to look at what's going on in the property in that empty lot behind my home. I've heard gunshots out there lately. I don't know if people are hunting out there. I don't know if that's due to a lot of the rental property coming in, and you've got certain types of people that think it's okay to shoot their guns in the air. We have found my neighbor, Mr. Ed, 80-year-old man, who just moved because he didn't like the area, the way the area was going. Used to walk his dogs back there. Found all kinds of drug paraphernalia in that lot. People dumped their deer carcasses in that lot. We've caught a man that was trying to commit suicide in his car on that street. So we've already got a lot going on right there. And now we're going to have this gas station right in front of our property, and from what I saw from this, one of the openings is going to be right next to
15 seconds.
right next to the gas station. So not only are we going to have the traffic, which is already so bad because since the industrial park has opened, all those people use that road to get into town. I know they talked about Alexander. They probably do use that road as well. But a lot of them use Old Goodman Road, getting off of 302. So it comes right there in front of my house. It's hard to get out. The road right there is awful. I don't know if y'all been down that road, but there's a big old dip in the road right there that I don't know what happened, but it hasn't been fixed. They basically just patched it up. So it's a big dip every time. There's potholes that have just been patched.
We're a little bit over. Did you say Miss Dye?
Huh?
What's your last name?
Dye.
Miss Dye, we're a little bit over. Ms. Stewart,
Okay.
did you get her address? I know that Mr. Festmeyer wants to check that culvert you're talking about by your driveway. He's Public Works Director sitting in the back. I'm sure he'll go by and look at that tomorrow. We just need to get your address, please. And thank you for the comments on this application. Anyone else to speak tonight? Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Pull this up a little bit. I'm a little taller than everybody else. My name is Brian Case. I live on Loblolly Street, right, in the Branch subdivision. And I guess my only concern is what is the city going to do about the intersection of Goodman Road and 302. Right, I drive it every single day. And if you try to go west out of there, you sit there and you wait forever and ever to turn west, just to go left off of Goodman Road, right? So without a light to assist in that, and you add in an additional surplus of cars, right? The lane is already, when you split down right down there, you only have enough for maybe 3 cars that are going left to sit idle. Right? And then when I come, I live in the east. I mean, I work in the east, so I work on Polk Lane, right? And when I come down, when I come from that direction and come home, the exit ramp going to Goodman Road, right? I've been backed all the way up, sitting with my back into my car, sticking out on 302, worrying, and people come flying by and they don't slow down. You're more concerned that your rear end's going to get ripped off because of people driving, trying to go the speed limit and not concerned about your safety, I guess you would say, as you're sitting there. And so if you add in extra surplus of cars going down on Goodman Road, turning in that direction, coming from the east, right? Because more than likely, a lot of these folks who are going to live there probably will work in that direction. I mean, that's where a lot of the industry is going right now, is over to the east side of Olive Branch, right, where the warehouses are being built. So coming from that direction, like I said, I feel like it's a safety concern unless you lengthen that lane all the way back up close to Hacks to make more room for the cars coming from the east. You know what I mean, to accommodate that, right, from a safety perspective, or at least put a light in there. I know we've had, it seems like we've gotten a little, when I drive east, I know we put a lot of traffic lights out there with that new development, or that new roadway out there, right? So, I mean, I don't understand why you can't put a light right there where the traffic's even more congested, right, to help alleviate what's coming off of Goodman. So that's my only concern.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Before we shut the public comments down, any more public comments against this proposal? If the applicant wishes to address some of the things that were covered, not everything, but some of the things, because things were brought up that the board may have questions about, I'll give you an opportunity to do that. Mr. Crooner.
Well, I tried to write down as much as I can, and I'm gonna hit the main ones. Well, water, it's been addressed. I'm not even gonna talk about it. Rest with schools, traffic, drainage, single-family rental, and then others I'll hit after. Schools, statistically, this is better for schools than single-family. This is, I mean, all the statistics from the chart show it. It's less impactful on schools than if this property became single-family. So, in my eyes, it's beneficial for the schools. Traffic. The current zoning, we can't argue, I mean, commercial is worse. All the charts, all the data, all the statistics. You can't argue that a grocery store there, a Lowe's, car dealership, traffic is going to be way worse with the current zoning. So traffic is least impactful with our request. Drainage, we're providing a 4-acre pond to help with detention. That's way more than enough. We feel that not only is that amenity necessary for the project to be successful, but we think that it's needed to make the drainage work properly. So that was a decision we made at the very beginning to provide a pond that was way too big, because it needs it as an amenity and as a drainage feature to make all the drainage work in the area. It was brought up about single-family rental. Single-family rental is going to be a problem and continue to be a problem if we don't provide a quality alternative. Was mentioned that Franklin's not a good comparison. I hope we become Franklin. We can't become Franklin if we don't start building stuff that's in Franklin. All studies weren't real. The traffic study was done with traffic counts at the intersections. Traffic study was real. All the market studies were real. Everything we did was real. Charts were cherry picked. Charts were pulled from real data. They were not cherry picked or made up. I will close with one good question I've heard before is, how does this approval help the current Olive Branch citizens? Reduce single-family rentals in their neighborhood. Large 4-acre detention pond will help with the existing flooding on Old Goodman Road. The pond is oversized for the development's needs. Provide a place to live for those hometown kids. Provide a place to help young adults set roots in their hometown community. Reduce traffic impacts from the current commercial and office zoning for the subject property. Keeps Old Goodman Road majority residential and puts major commercial users at Hacks Cross or the Bridges development to the west. And keeps, oh, I copied and pasted, that was again, sorry. So, yes, I'd like to close and answer any questions y'all might have.
Thank you. Board, any questions on this application, staff or the applicant himself? Public hearing has been closed. Any questions from the board?
Mayor, if I may speak to some of these issues that were raised, usually staff will bring them before you when you're considering applications like this. For example, crime statistics, stormwater, and traffic. Those 3 elements. Usually when you have a PUD or a development of this nature for a rezoning, those statistics will be brought in front of you. The reason staff didn't bring this is because of what the current zoning of this property already permits. When you look at that in perspective, the proposed development in terms of impact pales from all the data that we have. In terms of stormwater management, yes, there is an existing stormwater problem out there. Absolutely no doubt about that. That is the reason staff's recommendation to the developer was to provide a retention basin that would be far larger than what the development would normally require. If you had, let's say, a Walmart or a restaurants out there today, our regulations, which they will only build up to, what our regulations say is you will contain 100% of the water that you are generating from that side and end there. But we were able to negotiate with this developer to provide a stormwater retention basin that would not only contain the water that he would generate, but far more coming from the north of this particular site. The goal being to control the water going south into these neighborhoods. So this development will actually, if it were approved, will actually alleviate that stormwater problem in that particular area. With respect to crime, we looked at the other uses that are currently permitted on that property from a zoning perspective. The crime data, FBI data that we pulled, showed that this will be, in terms of rating, is actually folding scale. You have others like retail and grocery and convenience stores and the rest, which are currently permitted by right on the property that will actually generate more crime than what is being proposed in front of you. The last thing was traffic. We did take the traffic element into consideration. In the same regard, the uses that are already permitted on that property today will generate far more traffic than what this development is proposing. Of course, any use that is proposed on that site, let's say if you had a significant and major retail, they will have to do a traffic study. If the traffic study shows that a light is needed at the intersection of Goodman and 302, Andy will require them to work with MDOT, and MDOT will require them to put up the traffic, work with MDOT to put up the light there. But in terms of the use, that use will be permitted per zoning. We cannot administratively stop that use because it will generate traffic. So I just bring this up to say there is a way that we looked at it, at this from the perspective of what is already permitted on that side and what is being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Song. Questions or discussion or motions?
Let me make one comment before we have a motion. We recently had a project came before us that was asking for a convenience store and gas station. The developer offered to leave, I don't remember, I think it was like 50 feet of trees, put up a retaining wall to block any of the headlights coming into that project. And that was a concern of a lot of the people that were opposed for that. The alternative was to leave it zoned as it was. And that zoning was to take all the trees down all the way to the property line. So we end up going what the citizens asked us to do. We turned it down. Well, the developer went in and took down every tree on that corner. So every time the lights come on that road, they shine right in those people's headlight, right in their bedrooms, which is exactly what they didn't want to have. So sometimes when you ask for something, you get it, but you end up with something worse than what you thought you was going to have, and it becomes buyer's regret. So I know that I don't know that just because these uses are permitted in this C2 that somebody's going to come in and put a large retail outlet there. I don't know, but it's possible. So that's a concern for us, not only what y'all have asked for, but what could possibly go there and affect you even worse than what this could.
Anything else, board?
I'd like to make a comment too, on, kind of on your way you proposed it. Something will be built here. I don't know when, yeah, but something will. You cannot just say they can't develop it. It is a beautiful development. The road, I agree with every person who walked up there. Goodman Road needs to be worked on. We're trying to see, Mayor mentioned about trying to put sidewalks, and most people are against it. I've lived there all my life, and every house down through there, I've probably been in once in my life. It's a hard decision, because I have friends of y'all on both sides here. I'm just trying to reiterate, we try to make the best decision we can and what we think's best. But something will be built there, as what Mr. Dickerson said. It may be something worse, or it could be better, I guess. But, you know, but that's all I want to say right now, until we vote.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll make one other comment. The issue with the traffic is a concern to me, especially since the traffic study looked at everything right at that intersection of, sorry, I thought I had my mic on, at the intersection of 302 and Old Goodman, where people that wanted to go west would probably go back to Alexander. The ones that wanted to go east would go around to that thing and be able to turn right pretty quick. I am concerned about the traffic that goes further west that may dump onto Alexander. That's a lot of people that would be going on to Alexander that would, if they wanted to go east towards South Haven, that all that stand there or sit there at that light. That's not a very long light. I'm sure it may be adjusted, but that light's not going to hold a lot of people turning left there. If they want to go further into town, the traffic is already bad, like we said, especially if you have a train. There's a lot of traffic already on that road. You add that traffic that wants to go into Old Town, maybe to go to a restaurant or whatever, or they need to go to the intermediate school. If they need to go to the high school area, they're going to have to go back down Magnolia, which is not designed for a whole lot more traffic either. So I'm concerned about that. And the other issue I'm concerned about, because I've got several of these apartment complexes in my ward already. Plantation, the Vineyards, and the old apartments over on Goodman Road. Those are all in my ward already. So, and I get an email every week that's got crime stats on it, and I see crime occurring in one of these apartment complexes weekly, just about. I'm concerned about the apartments being built, and Kim, they are a top notch. I've never seen anything that nice been proposed. So I know Kim very well. When I was an HOA president, he built a subdivision adjoining ours. We had issues with it. I was able to sit down with Kim, got them worked out to our satisfaction with no problem working with him. He builds a very quality product. And like George, there's people on the other side that I've known my entire life. So this decision is going to make somebody mad on either side that's a friend of mine. But I'm concerned about the apartment that you build now is state of the art. What happens in 10 years from now? That's my concern. Kim and them will build a nice one. They will maintain it, but at some point they will probably get out of that business. They're developers. They're not apartment people. So somebody else is going to buy it, and I just don't know what's going to happen with that entity that buys it. Will they have the same concern for the citizens and the upkeep of that? Those are my concerns about the project. But as far as the project itself, it's one of the best projects that's ever come before this board as far as the quality of what's being built and the amenities and everything. So.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Any other comments or any motions?
Mayor Adams, since we need to get the ball rolling, and I do know how I feel and how I vote, I'll go ahead and tender a motion. But before I do, I wanted to make a few comments myself as I preface my vote. First of all, Nick, to you and your team, is an excellent presentation. I commend you for your detail, your research. Did a great job. I think the project is fantastic. It looks great. It's something that I would have chosen to live in, very possibly in Texas, if they had them when I started out. There are two things that I've based this motion and this vote on. Number one, I would give you the argument that has the area materially changed. I could see either way. I think it can support more housing, whether it be single family or multifamily, and yet on the other side, I also see the industrial commercial aspects across the street. So I think that could be argued either way, but I'll give that to you. My concern that I still struggle with is there a public need? Yes, we want our young people to stay here. I have a son in Maryland, one in Memphis. I'd love for both of them to live here. The disconnect I still have is I polled personally 8, 9 young professionals, CPAs, bankers, engineers, who all told me that they live in Memphis because there are things to do. They got the Grizzlies games. They got places they can go and walk and eat and so forth. Do we need those in Olive Branch? Probably so. I think a lot of people would welcome those. But at this point, we don't have that. And I think this is a case where you've got a great design, maybe a wrong time, and a wrong place. If it were on I-269 or 22 where people would live down here where it's maybe safer, more palatable, and they could hit the interstate and go to Memphis to work because that's where the jobs are, I think that'd be a great spot for what I know at this point that's maybe not available. But overall, I've struggled with this for weeks, talked to you. I appreciate you coming by. I appreciate all the pros and cons for it. But based on the fact that I don't think that there's a public need for it at this point, and I don't think that Olive Branch has to necessarily throw that gauntlet down. I may be wrong to make that change, but I'll make a motion at this point to deny the rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Earhart. Motion on the table to deny zoning. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Aldridge. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you do roll call vote, please.
Mayor, take just a moment. Just to clarify, it's a motion to deny, which is a negative motion. A yes vote is to deny the project, just so everybody's clear. A yes vote would deny the project. You'll be voting yes in favor of the motion to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Dye. Yes, ma'am.
Aldridge? Yes. Collins?
No.
Dickerson?
No.
Earhart?
Yes.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Henderson? Yes. Wallace?
Yes.
Motion passes to deny the zoning. Anything else, Mr. Dye, on this
No,
one?
sir.
Thank you to all who presented and sharing your input with the board. Continuing down the agenda, Planning Commission new business, item number 1. Item number 1 is our consent agenda items, which would be basically item A. Any motions on the consent agenda item? Motion to approve by Mr. Dickerson on consent agenda. Second, Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mayor, can we wait for a moment to let this clear out?
We y'all need a necessity break? Okay, on the consent agenda items,
I think they already voted on that one.
they voted?
Well,
We got a,
voted down, I think.
I'm gonna have to. Mr. Pulley, Officer Pulley, would you go ahead and close the door, Officer Pulley? On item number 1, consent agenda, there was a motion to approve that consent agenda item and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, consideration of application for a final plat for Patterson subdivision submitted by Nick Croonan, Civil Link, on behalf of Jamie Patterson, property owner. The request is to divide 17.6 plus or minus acres into 2 residential lots. The subject property is zoned AR, Agricultural Residential District, and is located on the west side of Bridgeforth Road, just over 0.5 miles south of Pleasant Hill Road. Is there a report?
Yes, sir. You can see the subject property, the 17.6 acres on your screen. This is Bridgeforth Road. We're on the west side of it. This is the Pleasant Hill Road intersection, about a half mile to the south of that. The proposal is to subdivide this property into 2 lots for single-family homes. Its zoning is AR, as you mentioned. Lot 1, 7.33 acres, and Lot 2, 10.27 acres. If you see this aerial picture, you'll notice that the trees are cleared diagonally across that 10-acre proposed lot there and along the southern border, and those are both electrical easements for utilities. This shows you a copy of the plat, and then that shows you the location of the easements across the property. This one's 75 feet in width. This one's 75 feet in width also, but only half of it is on the subject property. So you still have pretty good distance from here to here, several hundred feet, plenty of room to put a home in there without necessarily having it interfered with by those overhead electrical lines. Our Planning Commission reviewed this item at its February 13th meeting, and by unanimous vote did pass a motion to recommend approval subject to the conditions. The only one that I'll note is number 4 that talks about the possibility that the homes would precede the city's availability of sewer in that area. This is an area that was annexed in 21, so we don't have sewer out there yet. So if those homes did precede the sewer line being built out there, then they would be able to have septic systems. That concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Gambone. Any questions on the staff report?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can they build a house in that easement, or do they have to?
No, you couldn't build the house in the easement, but you've got pretty good, I mean, there's probably 5 acres within those lines right there that you could build a house, probably place it right there. But no, you could not do any type of structure underneath the power line easement. Or underneath the power line, or within the easement, I should say.
Okay. I'm ready to make a motion unless there's any other question.
Any other questions? If not,
Motion
motion to approve by Ms. Hamilton. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Wallace. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, consideration of application for a final plat for Patterson subdivision. No, disregard. Let's go to 3. Consideration of application for the final plat of lot number 1 and lot number 2 of Dancing Oaks Planned Commercial Development Subdivision submitted by Byron Houston Engineering, on behalf of White John H. et al., property owner. The request is to create 2 commercial lots totaling 18.33 plus or minus acres. The subject property is zone C4, Planned Commercial District, and is located on the east side of Hacks Cross Road, just north of Progress Way. Report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the piece of property that the board, I think last month, voted to approve a project text amendment for the truck stop at this intersection. So the property, as you did mention, is 18 acres total at the intersection of Hacks Cross Road and Progress Way. All this subdivision proposes to do is to subdivide the property into 2 lots to create the lot that you did consider for the truck stop. Utilities are available on the site. You have a sewer line here, water lines. It will be the responsibility of the developer to extend those lines into this subdivision. There are no sidewalks along Hacks Cross Road, as such the Planning Commission did recommend a waiver of sidewalk construction. This is the plat as proposed. It meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations. The Planning Commission at its meeting on February 13 reviewed this plat and recommended approval subject to these conditions 1, to 6, which are pretty much standard conditions for most of these minor plats. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Song. Any questions of the board?
Okay, I do have a question. Do you know if they're planning to build like a strip? Is that what I understand? What are they planning to do with lot 2? Do we know?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, nothing else.
Motion by Collins, motion by Wallace, second by Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. New business, consideration of recommendation from the city engineer, Mr. Andy Swims, to refund Mr. Spence Ray Woods DeSoto II $63,280 for the completion of the maintenance period due to all improvements to Woods Trade Center subdivision Phase 2 being complete. So, it's complete.
It's complete.
Ready to
and we
give him back his money.
recommend- Yes, sir.
Any questions? That's been completed, expectations met, and just time to refund the money we're holding?
That's correct.
Mr. Wallace, motion, is there a second? Ms. Henderson, second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Item 2, consideration of recommendation to authorize the City of Olive Branch to enter into a supplemental agreement number 1 with HDR Engineering Incorporated for the project referred to as the high mast lighting in the amount of $35,616.01, increasing the contract amount from $1,232,582.25 to $1,268,198.26, authorizing 10 calendar days to the adding 10 calendar days to the contract time, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Yeah, may have a, I'm not sure if you have the latest memo on this, but there was there was a change to it. If you have one that says it's with HDR, it's actually with Webster Electric, just a typographical error. So that is what the supplemental agreement is with Webster Electric, not with HDR. And you should have that in your packet.
Any questions? Motion by Mr. Dickerson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Earhart. All in favor? All opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion to leave regular session with the intent of going into executive session to discuss the items listed? Ms. Henderson, motion. Second, Mr. Wallace. All in favor? All opposed. Is there a motion to go into executive session with the intention of discussing a personnel matter in the court department, personnel matters in the fire department, personnel matter in the gas maintenance department, personnel matter in the parks department, personnel matters in the police department, personnel matters in the street department, personnel matters in the water maintenance department, and acquisition of property, and then pending potential litigation discussion with the city attorney. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss those items?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Earhart, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Aldridge, second. All in favor? All opposed, motion carries. I would say to staff, unless you're running some of the audiovisual equipment.
It's closed.
About what now? The roads? Did you say it's about your road? You say, oh, erosion or road?
Yeah, I'm talking about